go on. So it's underway. So yes. So see, a lot of amazing news, and so basically, so the last broadcast, which was a couple of days ago, I talked a bit about electronic harassment, how electronic harassment, we have all the instances of electronic harassment, including the what happened with the Russian embassy, what happened with the U.S. embassy in Moscow at the time of the old Soviet Union, what happened with the women of Green and Common, what's happening, what's been happening with the Canadian and U.S. diplomats in Cuba, China, and what happened with the microwave devices which are being used for crowd control, like sonic gun and active denial system, ADS. But then what happened? You have thousands of people from all over the world in this country, in the United States, in Australia, in France, Germany, all complaining about the fact that they're testing this stuff on us when we are at home. We have the disposable one, you know, and we get their life completely destroyed. Everyone thinks we are crazy, unless it's happening to them. Everyone thinks they are crazy. We are crazy, basically, So that's electronic harassment. Now let's talk about a bit today about real life harassment, which I can make quite a personal example of 2 weeks ago. I was riding my motorcycle in central London, and all of a sudden it was fast moving traffic. The engine started to cut off. Basically, it was quite dangerous. I managed to park the bike in a proper space, and and then it's I guess some RAC, Royal Automobile Club person come try to see if they could get me back on the road. And they were the first one to suggest that what happened was malicious, because they said, oh, someone ripped off is if a sensor, and then that was no something which could have been happening by accident. It's not like a loose cable or something. You need someone to really determined to rip off from the sensor from its socket, and then I had to go through health for a couple of weeks to get the bike, get the motorcycle repair. And then, so that was clearly malicious. Then I had to go through, then I obviously, it was quite a hefty bill to get it repaired as well. And now yesterday, I was again in central London. People may have been seeing watching my broadcast from central London in Westminster. And then on my way back, I realized that actually the horn of the bike was no longer working at the thing. But the interesting thing there is that the horn it was being serviced and sorted out. There was 3 weeks ago in a crash. So it's a bit strange that all this stuff seems way to happen when I go to central London. All this stuff seems to way to happen when I go to central London, to Westminster, to trying to raise awareness about targeting, right? So this time it was the ongoing. It can be quite dangerous. I mean, it's not as dangerous as ripping off a sensor and then getting the bike to cut off the engine, to cut off in the middle of fast-moving traffic, but it's fairly dangerous, because that's the way you used to let people know, cyclists, the other people crossing the road at random, to let you know, not to be aggressive, but just to let you know that you are there. So you think, oh, I will be able to signal my presence, and then you start trying to use the horn gently, just to let people know you're there. That it doesn't work. So it can be. It's not as dangerous ripping off a sensor from the engine, but it's pretty. Then I will have again to take the motorcycle to the garage, and leave it there for a number of days to get it. I mean, I try to do it myself, but but I think I'd better leave it to the professionals. Again, back in the garage for a number of days, if the bill attend, because you have to pay out for the work they do, not just for the parts, but for the work. If they have to have a look at what's wrong, if they take time. So the FT bill attends. So that this is what we call in our community. That's what we call That's what we call real life harassment. And these things seem always to happen actually every time I try to go to Westminster, or try on my way to some protest or some vigil or something political. This stuff seems always to be happening then. So, but enough of this, because there is so much stuff going on at the moment, and see if I can find what I'm looking for. So much stuff going on at the moment, and oops, let's see if I can. Oh, what's going on there? Right. Can't find what I want. Okay, right. Okay. Try to show, because there's so much stuff going on at the moment, and some of it refers to. Oh, what's this? Oops. Some of this refers to. What's going on there? Oh, okay. Some of this refers to. No, I try to find out some information for you, and I may do a search under Sky, Maracaibo, which is a city in Venezuela. Maracaibo, and because something I've been watching on Sky News, looting. See if I can find the article, the proper article. Yeah, Sky News. There is the article. Let's see if I can. My privacy, I care a lot about my privacy. The people of Sky, so where is it now? So let's see if I can show you, and let's see if I can show you in a proper way. Okay, so Venezuela plunged into anarchy, Oops, what is going on there? Plunged into anarchy, a city on edge after frenzied looting. So there you go. So it got me really angry, because basically, got me really angry because what these people seem intent on doing is like take all these prostitutes and these so-called people calling themselves journalists. They go with the fine comb all through Venezuela. If they can find any story which they can use to make out of the country. Everyone is starving. There is civil war already. There is chaos, and then the country is in desperate need of regime change. So then we have a number of independent journalists. We have a number of independent journalists in Onte Grande, Venezuela, in Caracas. They're all saying, look, the situation is pretty normal, everyone is calm. The absolute overwhelming majority of the population is totally against the foreign intervention, whilst this punk, Juan Guaido, is constantly asking for foreign intervention. So then there was people even visiting shops and local market, supermarket. They showed that plenty of food all over. But this so-called journalists, BBC people, Sky News, and all the tabloids, and they're really going with everywhere, looking everywhere in Venezuela if they come for some story. Because obviously there's things going wrong in every country. In this country, yesterday there was 5 serious attacks in Birmingham. There is 5 serious attack on 5 different mosques in Birmingham. If you look at what's happening for 18 consecutive week in Paris, there was some rioting and looting just the last weekend in Paris. So, I mean, So you can always go looking for something wrong if you want to. So that these people basically their job is they get over directed by their editors to go looking everywhere in Venezuela until they can find something to show that the country is falling apart, everyone is starving, is a police state, Maduro is a dictator, is killing his own people, all this kind of bullshit, which doesn't have any relationship whatsoever with reality. So this story is about, let's have a look, let's have a look again. So they go on and on, went on and on, saying that in the city of Maracaibo, which is possibly one of the second, is one of the largest cities in Venezuela, which is a port, which is heavily involved in in the oil industry in Venezuela. They say that obviously there's been some looting. They show some footage there. There's been some looting. They show some footage and again some picture of the looting. You know, so yeah, let's some more people. They probably, you get people like, you get the people, they probably pay to say that, oh, everything is falling apart in Venezuela. We are desperate. People are dying. We are desperate for regime change. This kind of bullshit. But however, when this stuff was happening last weekend in Paris, there was a completely different story. But interestingly enough, all the stuff been happening for 18 consecutive weeks in Paris. Is a lot more violent than what's happening in Venezuela. But are these media whore asking for regime change in France? Are they? Look, okay, there was some looting because people in Venezuela, maybe are fairly poor. If they maybe there's some sparking or something, they thought they could get away with it. There is some looting, yeah. But in France, in last weekend in Paris, there was some looting. It was not just looting. There was some serious rioting. There's not just these people like they seem like they're poor people. They see the opportunity to get a few items here and there, but it didn't seem that in Venezuela they didn't seem to involve any amount of violence. Yeah. It didn't seem to involve any amount of violence. But last weekend in Paris, not only there was extensive looting, but there was rioting and people were destroying banks, destroying shops, torching cars, all in the center of Paris. Yeah, you may argue that most of these people work for the police. They are infiltrated agents provocateurs, which quite a lot of these people in France doing this stuff. They are actually agents provocateurs working for the state. That's arguably. But it was a lot more violent in Paris. But in Paris, then, in Venezuela, the narrative, we desperate, the people there desperately need regime change, total bullshit. Up to 80% of the people totally reject any idea of foreign intervention in the country. Apart from Juan Guaido, which he keep asking, imploring the U.S. and Brazil and Colombia, whining all the time, asking the U.S., Brazil, and Colombia to intervene in the country because he has very little support in the actual country, so he needs to get support from all these other countries. Yeah. But did they ever heard anyone, any politician in the West, any other media asking for regime change in France, which is now, they have 80-90% of the people in France. Like some commentator said, it's not that they don't like Macron, they fucking hate him. Yeah, but do you hear anyone amongst our literati and press kind of prostitutes and politicians call for regime change in France? No, I never. What they're doing, it's quite interesting because in this article, let's see if I can go back to the article actually. Yeah, let's see if I can go back to the article. Then at some point, yeah, they accused, so these people were rioting, stealing everything, and they accused the Venezuelan police. Oh, this guy say, oh, I was trying to do some looting. Shock and horror. Shock and horror. There you see some of the pictures. There was been some looting, yeah. There was in France at the weekend. Yeah. But I expect probably all over the world in many different cities, many different countries, there are incidents of looting, but they don't get reported because, they're not part of regime change agenda. So I tell you what, this guy was saying like, oh yeah, I was involved in some looting, and at some point, shock and horror, the Venezuelan police used some rubber bullets on me, and then he was showing his back. There was some scratches, some little cuts and stuff. Yeah. So how does it compare to the brutality of the police in Paris? The figure we have, which I don't know if I can try to find it. It would probably be a bit difficult now to find this information, but let's see if we can. Let's have a look. I can look for yellow vest figures. All the, we're talking about, so this guy was showing that, he was involved in, he was intent, and he was doing casualties. Let's see if we can look at yellow vest casualties, right? No result found. Okay, never mind. So I have the article there somewhere about, what about the figure of in France, which you have 2,500 people being hurt, civilian being hurt during this riot, often people, bystanders, which get attacked by the police or by this. So this guy was showing that he has some scar at the back because he was hit at the back with some rubber bullet. What about the French police? They don't just using rubber bullets. They're using rubber bullet the size of a golf ball. Yeah, the police. That's why there's in excess of 20 plus people have been losing an eye. Protesters have been losing an eye, or even innocent bystanders in many instances. Yeah. So this guy was showing a few scar on his back. He said, I was doing some looting. Then the police, shock and horror, they shoot me at the back with some rubber bullets. They showed some pretty minor scar on his back. So I thought, oh, shock and horror is a fascist regime. We need regime change. Horrific. Look at what's happening in the United States when cops, when they take the women, take them, that they just shoot people dead, that they get away with it for no reason whatsoever. So shock and horror. This guy in Venezuela was involved in some looting. And shock and horror, the Venezuelan police, they shoot him in the back with some rubber bullets. Compared to what is happening every day in the United States when innocent people, bystanders, will get shot by the police and no one is ever held to account. Compare what was happening at the weekend in Paris, where they don't just use rubber bullets, they use rubber bullets the size of a golf ball. That's why 20 plus people in protesters and innocent bystanders in France, they have been losing one eye, right? And then what they use in France, they use this, they are called, let me tell you, they are called tear gas grenade. And so people think, oh, tear gas, it's not really serious, tear gas, you get a bit funny with your nose, you feel the eyes affected, but then, you move away, you use a bit of water, it's all right. No, that's completely. This they call tear gas grenade, but forget about tear gas. They are grenade. They explode. So there is people in between protesters and bystanders. They have this thing exploding in close proximity to their limbs, hands, and they've been losing hands. They've been basically, I think, 500 plus people in France protested. They've been suffering life-changing injuries because of the brutality of the police. Probably all the time, but most of the time actually caused by what they are agents provocateurs, intermites. It's not even the protesters. which is probably down to the agent provocateur, because they have this thing that's been going on for 18 weeks. Et what était desperate, they really shitting themselves. The French government is punk, Macron, it's been going on for 18 weeks now. So they are desperate to kill this thing off. And what they do, from their point of view, the best way to do is to have as much violence and brutality every week. So, they try to kill it off, like they did with the Occupy movement, etc., etc. Right? So this is really infuriating because, we have all these lies. Let's talk a bit about Venezuela. So I never heard so far anyone in France or outside France calling for the removal of Macron, for regime change, And it is probably the arrest in France. It's probably a lot more serious that in Venezuela. But it's all about perception created by the media. It's not about reality anymore. Reality doesn't matter. What's really happening. Also, most of the time, if you try to bring to the table the facts, just simple facts, forensic information about vaccine, about the stuff which happened during World War II, the forensic about certain myths about World War II, which I can't even have liberty to name, because then I will get in trouble. And then even if you try to bring the facts, you get accused of all kinds of things. You're anti this, you're anti that, you lose your job, you get a knock on the door by a couple of police officers. So if you just try to bring to the table the facts, yeah. So that's what is happening basically. Venezuela, all these horrible lies. They say, everyone is starving in Venezuela. Everyone is starving in Venezuela. And then there was a lot of independent journalists in Caracas. They were going all over the place, taking pictures, filming, and they show that most of the markets are full of food, most of the shop, most of the supermarket full of food, full of different items. So that was complete bullshit. Yeah. Then they say, but Maduro the election, it was illegal, it was rigged. Yeah. Then you have thousands of international observers at the time. Maduro won the election by 60%. You got thousands of international observers there, including Jimmy Carter, former U.S. President Jimmy Carter. And they were all saying that's one of the cleanest elections we ever monitored. So yeah. That's another one. They say, it's totally repressive. There is no freedom of speech in Venezuela. If you get anything, you get in trouble, right? Turn out that like in our country, in the United Kingdom, like in the United States, most of 95% is all owned by a handful of press barons. They're all against Maduro and the government. They keep all not 24/7 smears, accusations, insults against the government, even asking for the assassination of Maduro. And they're getting away with it. So that is the repressive situation in Venezuela where you can say anything without getting in trouble. There is no freedom of speech. Then you have all these press barons who completely control most of the press. Yeah, and they even call for the assassination of Maduro. They're getting away with it. So how is that for not having any freedom of speech in Venezuela? So they're spreading, and then you have the country which look at the country, the human rights record of the country. The country is asking for a regime change. The United States, I don't want to insult any. That's not about the people in the United States. That's about the government. But the United States proudly engaging in genocide for a couple of 100 years. And you look at Brazil. Now there is someone coming to London today from Brazil is going to tell. To report on all the human rights violation taking place in Brazil at the moment. Horrible human rights violation taking place in Brazil at the moment. So Colombia, which is a narco country, when I don't know, 60, 70% of the population they hooked up on opioids. I mean, they say they still have a civil war, the actual civil war. The civil war they would like to try to export into Venezuela is going on now in Colombia, because they have this revolutionary faction, the FARC, fighting the government. So that's the people who would want to export democracy. This failed country, or completely bankrupt, morally bankrupt country, they would like to bring regime change of democracy to Venezuela. So, but enough of that, enough of that. But I show you, let's have a look. Let's have a look at some. Let's have a look at some. Let's have a look at some of the latest unbelievable news. So, reaching for political eyes, Trump's statement on the Golden Eyes sparks international approach. So, I mean, I'm really sorry. I'm not interested at all. I've never been engaged in any kind of, I never been engaged in any kind of I never been engaged in any kind of Trump bashing. I never did that, But if people supporting Trump, sometimes they have the right idea or the right instincts, but if you think this guy is, do you really think this guy is going to drain the swamp? I mean, this guy is in bed with Rothschild, is quite literally, in the sense that, for instance, his daughter Ivanka for a couple of years was dating Nat Rothschild, the son of Jacob Rothschild, in London. And then they found another cheaper version with Jared Kushner. Then there's, they had to downgrade the expectation to Jared Kushner, which is like, it's kind of a poor man, Nat Rothschild. This guy was in real estate in New Jersey, was in bed with the mafia, the mob. Russiagate is a lot of bullshit. Russiagate, everyone knows Russiagate is a lot of bullshit, but look at the record of this geezer. He was a pal. He was a good pal of Jeffrey Epstein. They were a fucking young girl together. I mean, please, is this guy supposed? I'm not going to offend and upset a lot of people there, but let's stay real. I'm not interested in Trump bashing. I know Russiagate is a lot of bullshit, but look at this guy's record. So now this guy is basically, let's have a look. This guy is recognizing the Golden Eyes. I mean, so it's saying like make America great again, but it seems like he doesn't really give a shit about making America great again. It's all about, everything now is about making Israel great again. So yeah. President Trump and ISIS in northern Syria, trying to recognize ISIS in southern Syria, yeah. But okay, enough of that. Yeah, 20 years ago is the anniversary of the NATO war of aggression against Yugoslavia. And there was a lot of lie at the time. I may even say I at the time, that's quite upsetting. I believe quite of some of the lies actually at the time about, the evil Milosevic and all the rest of it, because suppose it was, I believe some of the lies. Then I started researching what's really happened with Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia, like in the same way of Libya and Syria, it was like a country where there was all kinds. It was a fairly prosperous country where there was quite a number of the different ethnic religious minority living in good harmony together. But they of course they had to destroy that, like they did in Syria, like they tried to do in Syria, like they did in Libya. So the thought is, if they do it by number, they probably have manual how to do all this kind of stuff. So first they try to sanction the country, try to destroy the economy, sabotage the economy, then they start to force on the IMF loan on the country. So then most of the GDP of the country, after a while, they start going to repaying the loans. So school and fire station, hospital, the health service, everything suffer horribly. So the people get really frustrated. Then and then you get. And then when people stay frustrated enough, you get all these people like being trained by NED, the National Endowment for Democracy in Washington. They come back into the country. They know everything about stir up things and get people, create riots and like it happened in Egypt. All the leader of the so-called Arab Spring in Egypt, they all been trained by the NED in Washington. So they get these people. Then after a while, the entire country gets civil war. The entire country fall apart. And obviously, the ICC, we see now that the ICC in Hague is all the people that in there's been after that creative situation of civil war. Obviously, war is not something nice. Then there is a lot of brutality, abuse, horrible stuff going on. But we see that the ICC is basically most of the prosecution about former Yugoslavia. They've been all people like Serbs, and they hardly any other prosecution against anyone else. So the ICC is a kangaroo tribunal. It's kangaroo tribunal designed to go after the enemy of the West. Now they're saying that they want to go after Assad in Syria. Yeah. But, it's a kangaroo tribunal, but from the point of I don't want to go there, but it seems that for the Trump administration even accepted the jurisdiction of this kangaroo tribunal, which they completely control, seems is just too much. Even that is just too much for the Trump administration to sign up or to acknowledge the jurisdiction of this kangaroo tribunal, which is totally controlled by Western countries. For the Trump administration, even that is a step too far. So they sanction some of these ICC judges, which is basically American stooges and banking stooges, and but they sanctioning them now, which is a bit bizarre, but because they sanctioning them because they want to basically after after for so many years basically going after all the enemy of the West. Now they start to say, oh, it doesn't look so good, so we maybe we need to prosecute some of the people involved in some atrocity in Iran, etc. That's obviously the bridge too far, even though it's all this tribunal, mainly made out of Western stooges anyway. So let's have a look at some more news. So there's been this atrocity in New Zealand. And now one of the effects of these events seem to be that New Zealand foreign policy comes home, close partnership with NATO. So I don't know if this Jacinta Prime Minister, let's look, Jacinta Ardern, she's possibly now, I'm not entirely sure, she's possibly in Brussels now. She probably had the press conference with Stoltenberg, which is the NATO chief honcho. And now they're talking about the close partnership with NATO, which is nothing new because, because it's not new because New Zealand, like Australia, Canada, these countries in the United States, are part of this intelligence community partnership called the Five Eyes. So they completely share, well, completely, I wouldn't say completely, but but they share most of their intelligence together. They share most of their intelligence. And then all the intelligence they go wholesale, pass on to the Mossad in Israel without any filtering or protection for citizens and stuff. So that's the situation with intelligence. So it's hardly surprising that now New Zealand, which is a member of the Five Eyes, that is getting closer partnership with NATO. Another effect of this wondrous, development is that Jacinta Ardern, it was the Prime Minister of wearing a whatever, not to burn that, but so basically it seems that one of the effects of this, although a ferocious, let's get the original article from the excellent Global Site. One of the effects of the outrage of the last few days is that now there's a absolutely ferocious censorship in being introduced in New Zealand. We are dealing with some very ferocious, we already lost most of our civil liberty and freedom of speech, but now in New Zealand things are getting even worse, apparently. So commiseration for the people of New Zealand. Right, so what else? Let's see, what other news I have for you. From more Orwellian dystopian news. Okay, facts and figures. How much Israel is spending to buy Washington politicians? Quite a lot of money, I think. And, in terms of all the money they get from Washington, all the money, they spend quite a lot of money. But in terms of all the money that they get from Washington, all the money they steal out of the American economy is probably just a really small fraction of that all the loot. So, but they spend, relatively speaking, as a lobby, they spend quite a lot of money, relatively speaking. And I will advise everyone to have a look at the Al Jazeera. I'm not a big fan of Al Jazeera. For one thing, Al Jazeera is a political tool of the Emir of Qatar. That is not to worry about that. Although Al Jazeera it was very much instrumental and central to the destruction of Libya, the attempted destruction of Syria. I'm not a big fan of Al Jazeera, but they make this wonderful 4-hour documentary about the Israeli lobby. And it was done by getting someone to infiltrate this lobby and then record all kind of, conversation with people from the IPAC. People are talking about 20,000 different organizations controlled by the IPAC, like think tanks, the AstroTurf, political organization, political groups, and media organization, NGOs. So it's like an octopus with the tentacles all over the United States. And so we talk about people that make some studies, say they actually take control and they, influence some 20,000 different organizations, think tanks, NGOs, AstroTurf, political groups. And so I will advise, because some of the stuff you will hear there will make you be able to stand up on your back but so I would see people to find out about what the IPAC, the American lobby, all the nefarious things they're getting up to. In the United States, I will advise everyone to look Al Jazeera the lobby documentary, 4 hours, worth every second, and then But one of the most horrific things they are doing actually is that they seem to have this kind of social radar system whereby they're able to spot, there is an Israeli ministry which seems to preside all this abomination, which is called the Ministry for Strategic Affairs in Israel, and they basically control the IPAC and all these different organizations, they coordinate them. And basically, one of the most horrific things they seem be able to do is, as I said, the Five Eyes intelligence is being given wholesale to the Mossad. That's a fact. So they have this kind of social radar whereby they're immediately able to identify anywhere in the world when someone is starting making noises, criticizing the state of Israel, defending the right of the Palestinian people, try to support the BDS movement, or group people together, getting together in university to support the Palestinians. They seem to be able to spot this stuff, in real time. I tell you what they do. And some of the horrific things they do, they start immediately going, zooming on the individual involved, to try to find anything, anything. And nowadays, as I said, the Mossad is getting all these Five Eyes in wholesale and stuff, so it shouldn't be difficult for them. So they start digging, every single person involved in this movement, they start digging and finding out everything possible, tons of information, and then see if they can dig up something. The people do stupid things when they're young and stuff, so they can find something, allegedly or supposedly or possibly. You may be able to find something on anyone, so they start digging and digging until they find something to discredit these people. And then so they basically try to destroy these groups. They first try to destroy the people, digging up if they can find something, anything, so they can make some stuff up. And then they identified this group where there's a BDS group being created in this university to center people in, try to create trouble, try to agent provocateur, try to go into meeting, try to provoke the people at this meeting, try to they're filming all the time, try to see if they can say anything which they can use to say is anti-Semitic or something. So they managed. So we know they managed to destroy the life of many of these activists. They managed to destroy, kill off many of this group just forming the university. I think at some point people are just giving up, because they don't want to have their life completely ruined and destroyed. Even there is information that they were using women to make false allegation against some of these activists. In particular, there is a professor at the university, and they got this woman to make false allegation against him to try to destroy his family life and stuff. So I will advise everyone to have a look at this lovely documentary. Al Jazeera tell me about the AIPAC in the United States. But it's global. What they do is global. It's not just the United States. It's like it's like a spider web which just extends all over the planet. Right. Let's see if we can find some other interesting information. Politician, blah blah blah. Let's see what else is there. Amazon. Yeah. Amazon banned this nine academic books questioning certain aspects of the Holocaust, I suppose. So that is as soon as you start to talk about the subject of the Holocaust and or maybe vaccines, or you question what's happened during, so you question what's happened during certain. You start to ask questions about what happened with certain terror attack in inverted commas. So you're sticking your neck out in a big way. So, but at the same time, we cannot allow to get all cowed and terrorized by this mafia, which is controlling at the moment all the information and making, not just trying to to silence everyone, but just to try to terrorize everyone into silence. So anyway, I try to be not to get not to get into much trouble. And Amazon banned these 9 academic, and I repeat, academic book questioning certain aspects of the Holocaust. Why? These books are basically forensic book. Okay, forensic book, and that we were looking at some evidence, try to understand what happened with the Holocaust. Right. So I was looking at some of the latest news. Yeah, so but the interesting thing is that you have like many Holocaust in history. You have the Armenian Holocaust, and you have the Rwandan Holocaust. You have the Hitler, Stalin. I think you have the famine in Ireland. We can say that the British Holocaust. Which is why all the people were dying of famine in Ireland. They were exporting all the food to other countries. So the people were laying there dying by the thousand. Food was being exported from Ireland to agricultural food. We can exported by all the people die. So you have you can say you have the Irish Holocaust. You have the all the Holocaust being perpetrated by the old Soviet Union, by Stalin, so we tried the Kulak, these little farmers which were being exterminated by the millions, and then the similar Holocaust happened in Ukraine when they were not compliant to the Soviet regime. Even then we're talking about maybe that's real figures, this one, if you get my drift. We're talking about maybe 8 million of Ukrainian people dying. But, at the time, if you were trying to do some historic research about all these, or forensic research about all these Holocaust, the Irish Holocaust, the Rwandan one, the Armenian one, the kulak of this small agricultural farmer in all Soviet Union. I think some people even talk about 12 million people died there. Or the Ukrainian Holocaust during under Stalin. You're totally free to. Or the fact that after the war, I think General Eisenhower probably starved to death deliberately 2 million people from the former German army. They were kept in camp, literally starved to death. So you can call that what? The Eisenhower Holocaust or the German Holocaust, to distinguish from the other Holocaust, which was also, But so you can look into all these things, and historians are totally free to explore all these different events, and to a degree at least. I mean, to a degree, because for instance, there is with regard to what happened in Rwanda, there was still a lot of lies and misinformation is information. But at least historians are free to look at the different events, at the forensic, and and maybe contribute little by little to a better understanding what happened in all these different situations. But if you try to do that with the Jewish Holocaust, my God, I mean, you lose your job, you lose your social networking account, and you may even get a knock on the door because So I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to question or ask questions about the Jewish Holocaust. I just try to show some general the context in which all this is happening. Yeah, so you can ask questions about most historic event, but apart from this very one. Okay, I'm not going to go into details because I don't want to get in trouble. I just presenting a general picture of what is happening. I'm not going to get into detail about the forensic of what happened there because I don't want to get into trouble. But the fact that I wanted to get into trouble tell a big story about what is going on, so that I'm not allowed to talk about it. So, okay, and then there's another one, which is that the Amazon bans Nation of Islam books on history of Jewish abuse against blacks. So, and and the thing is that so I don't want to dwell on this one, but most people, there was study made by the Nation of Islam about the subject. Usually people think, oh, it's all partisan, it's all bigoted, it's all this and that. But actually, a number of historians have been looking at the quality of these research, they seem to suggest that it's actually, you know, totally documented, bringing a huge amount of facts to the table. But there you go. There you go. Okay, let's see if I can find something else for you. Oh, it's quite interesting because, yeah, well, obviously I don't want to dwell too much on this kind of subject because of, in terms of my own personal safety. So, you know, I try to be, I could bring more facts to the table. I'm not going to because, and then there is, Truth Out, there is this fantastic, website called Truth Out, and so they have really fantastic article. This is a security war inside the military, big massive file with Palantir, the company they pay to spy on you online. So it brings so many mind-blowing facts to the table, these articles about basically all the spying and, you know, this dovetail with all the information we have been getting out of, you know, people like Edward Snowden and William Binney and, you know, what is, so basically, you know, they know what we are doing. Even if they want to, they can even, you know, I know it's not hyperbole. It's not a conspiracy theories. It's not out of paranoia. We know it's been demonstrated most of the times. They really zoom into all this information. They can even find out or know what we are going to do next, even before we decide to do it. So they have all this, what we bought, what we have been posting online, etc. So that's a fact. It's not a paranoid conspiracy theory. It's been demonstrated that they can have all these predictive capabilities, Orwellian. So I don't want to dwell too much on this article. And then there is another article from the same organization called Outsource Intelligence, how the FBI and CIA use private contractors to monitor social media. So basically, all this stuff, all this information they collect on us, they abuse. It's not even, most of the time, it's not even done by government bodies. Not that that would make any difference anyway. It's not even done by government bodies, not that that would make any difference because they will still do whatever they want anyway. But it is interesting in the central role of Palantir. So there is a lot of information, more sort of information. So I'm trying myself to connect some of the dots, and I'm trying myself to connect some of the dots. Palantir is very central to all these unspeakable activities. So there is so much influence. So this in a way dovetail a bit with the trilogy of articles made by the fantastic Max Blumenthal and Alex Rubinstein. Max Blumenthal recently was also in Caracas. He was filming and showing that all the market and all the supermarket and shop they're full of food and stuff. So the excellent, the fantastic Max Blumenthal. So, which on the more or less on the same subject, on Palantir, and basically, it's like right now, a company like Palantir Technology Incorporated, Booz Allen Hamilton, which was the company contractor employing Mr. Edward Snowden, and I2, are mining your Facebook, Twitter, data, and blah, 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 blah. So it's a lot of stuff. Let's maybe try to focus on a couple of main things. So this is, let's try to focus on a couple of main things. One is the role, basically the Max Blumenthal, Alex Rubinstein article were highlighting the role of this billionaire, one of the richest men on the planet, which is Pierre Omidyar, which was the founder of both PayPal and, well, eBay and PayPal. Basically, Pierre Omidyar is one of the richest men on the planet, but instead of spending his time on the beach enjoying his money, apparently, little by little, he found himself, he positioned himself at the center of this spider web of, you can say, intelligent spider web of different companies. We're talking about thousands and thousands of companies, the think tanks and NGOs and AstroTurf political group. Basically, is one of the main is controlling Palantir, Pierre Omidyar, amongst other things. Is controlling the Intercept. It does. We have a very strange situation because I know for a fact that there are some good people working for the Intercept, but the very name of the Intercept raises a number of questions because I totally respect Glenn Greenwald. I think he's a man of the utmost integrity. There are some other good people working for the Intercept. I'm sure the people of the utmost integrity. But the fact remains that the Intercept is mainly financed by Pierre Omidyar, which there's no question about what Pierre Omidyar is doing for a living at the moment. So, I mean, spreading propaganda, fostering regime change, destroying the reputation of politicians which don't conform to the bankers' agenda. Is doing this thing all over the world. It's global. So Pierre Omidyar is one of the main investors in founders of the Intercept, and some people at the Intercept, people of the uppermost integrity, like Glenn Greenwald and others. But the fact remains that the Intercept was mainly so it's called the Intercept, which is quite interesting. And the Intercept was created to disseminate the Edward Snowden files, basically. Now, the fact remains that this organization is calling the Intercept, and now of all the huge amount of Snowden files what have been brought to the out is disseminating is probably less than 1%. And this organization is called the Intercept. So this shows in a way all the enormous ambiguity behind even involving very people with great integrity and organization which may be supposed to actually spread information and stuff, but there is always this dipped in ambiguity due to the fact that people completely control the money supply. To do anything you need money, so there's this big ambiguity going through all different kind of political organization, AstroTurf movement, etc. So Pierre Omidyar is one of the richest men on the planet. We're talking about billion and billion and billion of money. But instead of sitting on a beach somewhere meditating and enjoying his money, he's positioned himself little by little at the center of this enormous spider web. We are talking 20,000 different organizations. It's mind blowing. Actually, Max Blumenthal and Alex Rubinstein, they made a graphic where you can see it's like this enormous spider web of it's colossal number of different think tanks, NGO, AstroTurf movements, and media organization, all intent on fostering, controlling the media, controlling the social narrative in, we may say, in most countries in the world, controlling the media, controlling the social narrative in most countries in the world, not just Western countries, and discrediting any politician which go against the interest of the banking cartel, or discrediting any country which you oppose the interest of the banking cartel and try to foster regime change. It's been involved in all kinds of color revolution. Pierre Omidyar, Palantir, his organization is including in Ukraine, in Syria. So that's quite interesting to note that there is this spider web. I suppose this spider web of misinformation and lies, horrible misinformation, horrific misinformation and lies. I think he was also involved. I think Piero Migliaro was involved with the UK Integrity Initiative. With the Institute for Statecraft, all desperate, try to do everything to dig up everything on Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party to discredit Jeremy Corbyn. So Piero Migliaro was involved. So yeah, so it's quite interesting to note that on top of this network whereby they collecting terabytes and terabytes of information on every one of us, possibly is quite difficult for the mind to comprehend how much information they're collecting on every one of us. And on top of that, superimposed on this network, spy network, surveillance network, you have this another network. It's this kind of spider web which aim of controlling the social narrative in 100 different countries, immediately zooming in on everyone, try to question the official narrative or go against the interests of the bankers, or any politician try to oppose the interests of the banker, any country resisting to the to be in complete control. Every politician tried to do, the interest of his own people instead of the interest of the bank. Immediately they detect it, they zoom in, they start a ferocious campaign of character assassination. And so we have this surveillance network, and on top of that we have this kind of spider web aim of controlling the social narrative all over the world, in most countries, and immediately zoom in if there is anyone which is deemed to be a danger to the terror financial banking cartel. They immediately spring into action, and they try to find out as much as possible, zoom in, terabyte of information, can we find something to discredit this person? If we cannot find to discredit this person, can we make something up? Can we set the people up, like they did with Scott Ritter anyway, which has been stupid and naive enough to fall for it. Scott Ritter was a danger to them because he was questioning, like all the people at the time were questioning the official version of the Iraq weapon of mass destruction. They either completely assassinate their character or they kill them, like Dr. David Kelly. So there you go. Let's go back to our little information. So, and there is another thing before I move to something else which I want to mention, which is very much connected to all this. It's the fact that, talking just a few words about former NSA technical director William Binney, which is actually a big supporter of the TI target individual community, to the point that William came to our conference in Brussels in 2014, spoke there, and then together with another well-respected, well-regarded NSA whistleblower, Kirk Webby, they together launched themselves. No, it was not the idea of coming from the TI community, it was actually their own idea. A couple of years ago, they launched this initiative to find out what's really happening with targeting. They launched this idea of a global TI, target individuals, survey, global. So which I immediately took part in the survey when I found out at the time. Then I also had the opportunity to talk there. We had a conference call with Derek Robinson, Ella Free. There was also William Binney, and Kirk Webby, and I had actually the opportunity to ask a couple of questions of William and stuff. So yeah, but quite interesting because it's quite interesting why I'm mentioning. I mentioned William because he's one of the main supporters. He's a total supporter of our claims at target individually, completely validating our claims to what is happening to us. Usually William Binney, you don't find anyone in the alternative media, in the activism community, have a bad word to say about William. So it's a universally well-respected, well-regarded by he was a staunch supporter of the TI community, our claims. So that's why I mentioned William, but also he was the former NSA the technical director, and before whistleblowing on the organization, and basically what happened. it did create, because all these organizations, when you talk about surveillance, they have the problem. They collect, they're holding up all these the enormous amount of information on everybody, which at the moment also includes biometrics. The latest craze for them is to holding up biometrics, so facial recognition, iris images, the people DNA, you name it. And most of the time, this is when this information is not being collected illegally, which is possibly what happens most of the time, at least it's being retained illegally, because there is a fairly strict guideline how we deal with this biometric information. Then if you you can only hold on to it for a short period of time. But so it's collected, most of the time it's collected illegally, is retained or did up illegally. So the result is enormous amount of information. And then, there was an interesting article, like when you look at the extent of the information, maybe I go back to that. I was talking the other day about this new development that they try to in the workplace, where they try to monitor everything people, Amazon in particular is at the forefront of this. They try to monitor everything people do in the workplace, even try to detect the mood of people in the workplace. And close to that is the fact that now they try to develop a software which has been tried in a number of, a small number of airports, when they, just facial recognition, they try to detect people's mood. So basically, they try to develop, it's probably in infancy, it's early days, but they try to, beyond facial recognition, they try to get into mood recognition. So it's been already tried, I'm sure, in a small number of airports. So basically, the idea is that the way you move, they try to detect your mood. If you're anxious, if you're angry, if you're restless, and then you get the TSA marshal to to pester you and to follow you around. Strange thing happened to you in your flight and stuff. So like going back, let's say collecting all this enormous amount of information. There is now new kind of information coming into the mix, which is like Amazon worker, how many keystrokes they do to see if they keep themselves active. Try to monitor if they move quickly enough or they're resting when they're supposed to be working. And then in China they already floating this idea of putting helmet on workers to detect the brainwave, what kind of state they are in, if the positive state, the negative state. So when we talk about all this colossal amount of information, that there's new thing being brought to the table, like by Amazon, by some plans by the Chinese government to detect people brainwave, to detect if people are really working, or if they're resting or something, by Amazon. So, but when we talk about the enormous amount of information, there's a new kind of sinister kind of information being brought into the mix all the time. So they have this colossal amount of information. And going back to William Binney, one of the problems they have, and I think they're getting quite better at it, but particularly, considering that ARPANET was started in the late 60s, it was mainly designed not so much to create on no, so ARPANET, which is, I'm sure everyone knows, is the precursor of the internet, was designed not so much to create a resilient network which could allegedly survive a nuclear war, but what actually it turned out that you can find all the information by this book by Yasha Levin, which came out recently, which is called Surveillance Valley, referring obviously to Silicon Valley. Actually, the main concern, it was not so much to create a super resilient network. The main concern, it would transpire, it was actually to spy, to create a network where to use to collect all the information of the huge amount of political activists that were around at the time, and to create a network which would allow all different agencies, university, local police force, and to share this information about activists. So that was actually the main purpose of ARPANET, not so much to create a resilient network, but actually to start collecting information on all the activists that were around at the time, student movement and the civil rights movement, anti-Vietnam War movement. So that was actually the real purpose of ARPANET. But So they started, let's say, with ARPANET, which then became the internet. They started in the late 60s to collect all this colossal amount of information of everybody. I'm sure in the beginning they had a lot of problems because they were very ambitious, you may say, like very ambitious in a kind of evil kind of way. They have this really ambition to create this kind of social radar where they can immediately detect activism emerging in certain social network and single out the individual activists, etc. So that they have this very huge ambition, which may say is a totally evil ambition, but obviously they're probably struggling for decades with the inadequacy of the software and the hardware. But now we are getting to the point, I suppose in the last few years, that they finally they start finding a way to fairly smoothly, they're not there yet, I don't think, but they're getting better and better at processing all this information, which was a challenge in the early days. And now we go back to William Binney. William Binney was tasked with, he was the NSA technical director for a number of years. He was tasked by the agency to develop exactly a system, which has been all the time they've been looking for this kind of system, to process all this information in a kind of smooth way. And he came out with something which was very cheap, because it was produced in-house by the NSA, probably a couple of $1 million, and a system called TeenThread. Most of intelligence analysts afterward they say, "Oh, that was a really good system." Yeah, that was a really good system. But the agency, the NSA, decided to discard William Binney project and to spend billions to a alternative program, which was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, was made by Lockheed Martin, which is also the one which is now the one presiding over the F-35 fiasco, and which basically show the corruption. Yeah, unfortunately, the corruption in the US, in the DoD, which is not so much about protecting Americans, not so much about protecting the nation, is about using this colossal budget, which is, maybe, 20 times how much the Russians spend on defense. 20 times. This colossal budget, all squandering all this money, which they then recently say they tried to audit the Pentagon. They say there was $23 trillion missing, which is the equivalent to all the U.S. deficit, federal deficit anyway, federal debt. So this enormous corruption whereby all this enormous amount of money, which, as I said, is maybe 20 times what the Russians spend on defense, is being squandered to fight war for the state of Israel. Trillion to squander to fight war for the state of Israel. And when the money is not squandered to fight war for the state of Israel, the money is used for corporate welfare, for companies like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing, British Aerospace, Goldman, that's a bit of the tongue twister, so I'm going to leave it alone. But yeah, so that's what's happening. And William Binney started to blow the whistle on the corruption and on the basically the horrific squandering of American taxpayer money. So he became a whistleblower. So let's see if I have any other news for you. Yeah. That's another good one from a website called foreignpolicy.com, but it's not the official website. It's actually a whistleblowing website. And it's U.S. firms are helping build China Orwellian state. Let's view the original article. So I repeat, if we can get to the article eventually, hopefully. From Foreign Policy, which is not an establishment website, but it's actually a sort of alternative media website. To say U.S. firms are helping build China Orwellian state. As I mentioned just now, so they're planning, they're floating this idea in China now to put helmets on the workers to detect their brain, to register their brainwave to see if they working in a positive frame of mind, if they harbor any kind of negative thoughts. So if the people heard about all this horrific stuff and they think, oh, but that is just China. But apparently, it's not just China, because most Silicon Valley companies could totally involved and complicit in creating these, you know, creating these abominations. So I have a question for you. Do you think that consider all those news of about censoring, about Google being involved, Amazon being involved, all this stuff going on? You think that this is something which is limited to China, or it's not something which is already coming to us? That's I don't know what to think. I know what I think. So, but maybe we want to have a quick look at this article. So, is a Dutch cybersecurity researcher disclosed last month that Chinese security contractor SenseNet. So basically, to make a long story short, it appears that there is something, a Chinese, huge Chinese security contractor, so, they have a billion population of, I don't know, $1 billion or something, so everything is, the scale is amazing in terms of everything is bigger there. But, so this SenseNet the contractor, intelligence contractor working for the Chinese government, apparently so they were just now they were collecting all these enormous, colossal amounts of information on Chinese people. They were not even bothering to protect the information properly, so there was password, facial recognition images of millions, if not billions, of people completely left exposed. Because another thing they do routinely is like they collect all information, they sell it to anyone having the money to pay. They don't even bother to protect it. You heard all the story about leaks and people hacking into database and stuff. So another common thing to Facebook, to Twitter, you heard the story, banks, Barclays, stuff happening with all this. Every day there's some news coming out. So not only they're holding most of the time illegally all our information, terabyte of information on every one of us, but they also they sell it to anyone. They quite happy to sell it to anyone with money to pay. And they often they don't even protect this information. That's why this is all the time hackers that they can get hold of all this database. They don't even bother to protect the information, right? So talk about abusing people information, right? It's not just collecting people information; it's abusing people information. And there is rumor that some of these Western company, which is working with this Chinese giant in the giant contractor in the way of intelligence, they've been, the discovery suggests SenseNet is one of a number of Chinese companies participating in the construction of a technology-enabled totalitarian police state in Xinjiang, which has seen as many as 2 million Uyghurs, I don't know if you're familiar with the story, I am, placed into re-education camps since early 2017. Yeah, so I don't want to be complicit in bad-mouthing the Chinese government, but this is, I fear this story is only too real. So the abuse, the oppression of the Uyghurs people in Xinjiang, and which is a pretty horrific story. I mean, I know that the Western media, they're really keen on they're keen on producing anti-Chinese propaganda in every possible way. I mean that's one of the main agenda. But I fear that this story about what's happening in the Xinjiang province. Um, I think it's probably interesting to mention something here, which is like so we have all this story about regime change, the destruction of Libya, Syria. To understand what's happening in country like China and Russia, Cuba, there's a certain degree of repression. I mean, I wouldn't dream of putting all this country on the same, paint all this country with the same brush. I mean, because in terms of human rights and there is vastly different situation in Russia and China, vastly different in Cuba, and that there are all these alleged human rights violations in all these countries. But you need to understand that this country, they know very well that they're very much in the crosshair of the Western regime change brigade. You understand? At the last election in Russia, presidential election, most people say that the election was totally fair and square, but then all the Western NGO, they managed to actually to create almost a critical mass of protest, which were starting to degenerate into riots, in spite of the fact that most of the international observers say that the election was totally fair and square. So, if you understand the behavior of this country like Cuba, say, you may accuse them of being repressive, they are probably shitting themselves because they know the West, the terror financial banking cartel which control all Western government, they will love to transform, to have riots, to have a revolution, a color revolution, to transform this country into a failed country, so they can completely plunder them and privatize, even tell people breed and push everyone into abject poverty. So they would really love to do that. So you need to be mindful when you condemn this country. Iran is another case. But when you condemn, they may be repressive. Look what happened to Iran at the Stuxnet. They were this computer virus created by Israel and the United States, which has been working properly, was going to blow up some of the Iran nuclear installations. There was a murder of 7-8 Iranian nuclear scientists just in Iran. That they managed to get people in Iran to murder all the scientists. I mean, this country, they may be, some of them may be a bit more repressive, which are very much in the crosshair of the regime change brigade, which, they don't want to change the regime. They want to transform this country into failed state like Libya, so they can completely control them and completely plunder them. So if government in Russia, in China, in Cuba, in Iran are a bit, they may look to it a bit paranoid about controlling the population, controlling the information. Maybe they have a few reasons to be paranoid. If you look at the recent history of many instances, you can mention and stuff that they may have reason to be paranoid. And with regard to the Xinjiang, what's happening in Xinjiang province, which is basically a province of China bordering with Afghanistan, which is where this population is mainly Muslim. There's a majority Muslim population. So China is very paranoid about Xinjiang, about rioting, about maybe the radicalization of the Muslim population. The people in Peking are very paranoid about the situation, right? And as I say, because they're a repressive regime, they're being terribly, completely paranoid, and it's a repressive regime in China, and yeah. But let me remind you something that was happening in Afghanistan. Something which was reported by, so it's just not a conspiracy theory, is when Karzai, the American puppet, arguably, was still, like the current one, but it was still the president of Afghanistan, by name only. There started to be a certain amount of friction between the U.S. forces and the Afghan government, because even if you're a puppet government, sometimes they friction do arise out of different situations. So then there's a much boil over the tension between the Washington and Karzai seemed to be getting worse and worse and worse. And at some point, Karzai make this statement about these helicopters flying at night from Afghanistan and carrying armed men from Afghanistan into the China Xinjiang province. And then after that, so I think Karzai make this public statement. It wasn't on all the media, mainstream media. It didn't elaborate too much on the story, but it was saying like we are very, very concerned because there is this night flight of helicopter. Apparently there were British Chinook helicopter, which is quite interesting, because then they say, there was never enough Chinook helicopter to transport the British troops safely, but then they were using them to ferry terrorists into China. But, there you go. But, so Karzai say, we are very concerned, the government is very concerned, the Afghani government is very concerned about it. There seems to be every night this flight of helicopter from Afghanistan into the Xinjiang province carrying armed men. Right? And then after that, what happened? There was big riot, almost the beginning of a civil war in the Xinjiang province. After Karzai made this public declaration, after that, in the following month, there was this big riots and almost the starting of civil war in China's Xinjiang province with the Muslim population rebelling against the government, etc., etc. But it seemed anyway. The American British government prior to that they seemed very keen on bringing terrorists, say, or armed men into China. Transporting, so that's if you wonder why they're so keen on being in Afghanistan, because that's if you wonder about it, because Afghanistan they have a large border with China, they have a large border with Russia, they have a large border with Iran, and they have a large border with Pakistan. So if you wonder what they're so keen on keeping to, we've been fighting these people for 15 years or 17 years. So because it's a bullshit. They want to be there because Afghanistan, they share a border with China, they share a border with Russia, they share a border with Iran, not to mention Pakistan. So because that's of some of the countries they would like to regime change. Russia, China, Iran. So that's why we are in Afghanistan. That'll tell you why we are in Afghanistan. So let's see if I have more news for you. So when you say the Chinese government is very paranoid about the Xinjiang province and the Muslim majority population because they are a repressive regime, but then you find the American and the British were consistently shipping terrorists into Xinjiang. So maybe the Chinese government has maybe a few reasons to be paranoid about what's happening in Xinjiang. But and let's see if I can give you some more information. That is a critical one because nowadays, these if say something about the subject is one of the new taboos. So they get your gas for gouters. Measly propaganda can have dire public health ramification. I'm not going to say anything more about that. You have to please the other goal and demolish his posture on Crimea. Well, it seems to me that I never engage in any Trump bashing. I'm not interested enough. I think I've always been saying Russiagate it was a total pile of bullshit, but you know, uh, if you like, all I can say, if you think like Trump is going to drain this wall, all I can say to you is just good luck, good luck, best of luck. But most of the time it seems like if you look at the Trump policies, I mean it's like it's not so much about making America great again. It's like making Israel great again. But then we go into the old narrative about Greater Israel, which is talking about Greater Israel, making Israel great again, making Greater Israel. And then there is another article, it's America-Venezuela strategy, coup by sheer narrative control. So when we're talking about what's happening in Venezuela, it seems that the best weapon, if the people are really like John Bolton, the dual passport carrier John Bolton, it's interesting because to know all the people at the top of the US government have a dual passport. That is quite an enlightening piece of information. I have the data, I have the information. Some of the top US officials which have dual Israeli-American passport. That's quite an interesting bit of information. But I think that, so in a way, what I find is quite by the excellent, fantastic Caitlin Johnstone. She's a star. She's a star. So it seems that, the best weapon the regime change brigade in the US have vis-a-vis Venezuela is not so much that they really think that it will be easy for them to orchestrate some kind of military intervention, or they really think is really realistic now, or not that there's any willingness on the part of the Colombian government to invade Venezuela, or the part of the Brazilian government to invade Venezuela, or the part of other Latin American countries to encourage any kind of invasion of military intervention in Venezuela. It seems that the best weapon the regime change brigade has vis-a-vis Venezuela is that they completely control, all these prostitutes in the media, all these. So basically, they completely control, in the Western world, they completely control the anti-Maduro narrative. So you won't find any mainstream media in the West hardly questioning the official narrative. So that is the best weapon, right? That is the best weapon. So not so much that is a military intervention in any way realistic. Oh, sabotage, sanction, it's the usual, the way it is done. So there's a sanction to make the people suffer. Then you get these shields moving into the country, try to create unrest. It's the usual. It has been done in Yugoslavia, Libya, Syria. It's all the same. Ukraine. It's all the same. It's all the same modus operandi. So it seems that the strongest weapon in trying to regime change Venezuela is to try to engineer a civil war which can get 100,000 killed, including women and children, is the fact that this terror financial banking cartel, their politicians, stooges, they completely control most of 99.99% of mainstream media narrative. So and then you get this situation where after a couple of days when this punk Juan Guaido, this pernicious creature, which is remind me a bit of Macron in France actually, as in terms of being a pernicious creature, completely controlled by the bankers. After this creature proclaimed itself as the new president of Venezuela, there was nothing in the Venezuelan constitution which in any way would justify that in any way. Just something he did completely out of the blue. Nothing to do. There is nothing, not a single anything in the Venezuelan constitution which would justify or rationalize Juan Guaido proclaiming himself as the new president. It was just completely out of the blue. It's like I may say tomorrow, oh, I am the new president of Italy. Oh, I am the new president of France. The same thing. Like tomorrow I was to go on Facebook and say, oh, look, now I am the new president of France or something. That is the same thing. Like, same rationality, same justification, same legality. So after a couple of days, this creature proclaimed himself as the new president of Venezuela, and then you get the some 26 members of the European country jumping on the bandwagon. Yes, this is the new president. We need regime change, with the exclusion of the much maligned Italian government, which say no, we won't have anything to do with bullshit. Which is it's all to their credit, not because I was born in Italy, but because I wish many more European governments had been doing the same, but opposing regime change in Venezuela. So basically, complete control of the narrative, propaganda, 100% propaganda. So a couple of days after the regime change bandwagon started to roll on, 2,000 Twitter accounts were deleted because the owner of the account were questioning the official narrative of Venezuela. So saying things like, same thing like I've been saying many times. Let's say, but 80% of the people in Venezuela don't support a foreign intervention. The latest protest in favor of the government, they were very much outsizing these protests of this punk Guaido, the so-called opposition. Questioning the fact that everyone in Venezuela is starving. People have been there recently. They say, oh, everyone is quiet, everyone is carrying on with their life. The food, the shops and the supermarket, the market are full of food. For saying things like that, 2,000 people, 2,000 totally factual stuff, 2,000 people on Twitter got their account deleted. So that's the best weapon they have, which is not to be underestimated. There's a military intervention is not terribly realistic, but is a powerful weapon. They completely control the narrative of most Western media. So you get any kind of, you go on any of the TV network, BBC, Sky News, the newspaper, they're all regurgitating this kind of bollocks propaganda, like everyone in Venezuela is starving, no one can say anything against the government, even though they all this media baron calling for the assassination of Maduro, getting away with it, but allegedly no one in Venezuela can open their mouth to say anything. So you have all this, that's one of the best weapons they have. They completely control, and that is the same with the karate assassination of Jeremy Corbyn. The best weapon they completely control the narrative. So now, if you look for any the TV program or anything, like it's become the official gospel. Like Jeremy Corbyn is anti-Semitic, the Labour Party is anti-Semitic. You wouldn't find any journalist. So you have all this round table, people, talking. Shops and things. We don't find any journalist. It's like any journalist daring to say like, no, I don't think Jeremy Corbyn is anti-Semitic. Look at his whole political history. It's not anti-Semitic, Jeremy Corbyn. The Labour Party is not anti-Semitic. Every study has shown that the incidence of every study conducted, every rational study conducted, has shown that the incidence of any anti-Semitic behavior in the Labour Party is a lot smaller than in the general population at large, and in the other political parties. Yeah, but you won't find any journalist. So it's become the official gospel. So it's a given. Jeremy Corbyn is anti-Semitic, the Labour Party is anti-Semitic, they have a huge problem with anti-Semitism. Every journalist keep regurgitating this bullshit. And, if you're a journalist, you question this stuff, you do it at risk and peril. You see? It's not a question of just people being brainwashed. If you want to hold on to your job, otherwise next day they're going to accuse you of being anti-Semitic. So look what happened to this Labour MP, which is, is really loved by all the grassroots in the Labour Party, you know, maybe even more than Jeremy Corbyn, a guy called the Labour MP for Derby, Chris Williamson, right? So, you know, he was at a political meeting and he was saying the Labour Party, vis-a-vis of this allegation of anti-Semitism, the Labour Party should, you know, should stop apologizing and maybe, you know, fighting back, because we know we have the evidence now. There all this act information. We know that all these allegations were engineered by organizations like the British Institute for Statecraft, or the British Intelligence Initiative, Integrity Initiative, which is paid by people like Piero Midyar and the British Foreign Office, and etc., taxpayer money. So that's what he was saying. He was not defending. He was not saying anti-Semitic. He was saying, look, we have a lot of evidence. We also study, you know, showing that any incident of anti-Semitism in the Labour Party is very, very small. We have all this stuff. We know through this ACT document that actually all these accusations have been done maliciously. We know all the information about the Integrity Initiative. There's business spreading this kind of information. They control most of mainstream media. So that's what Chris Williams was saying. He was not advocating anti-Semitism. He was saying we have the evidence that there's all a lot of good faith and manipulation in all this allegation. We have all the evidence, we have all the study, we have all the leaked information. So instead of keep apologizing about something which doesn't exist, we should bring the facts to the table. That was Chris Williamson was saying in this political meeting. Immediately was suspended by the Labour Party. Probably on, I don't know, because that was deemed to be anti-Semitic. And then you get people like lovely creature like Tom Watson. I thought Tom, he was when I was in Parliament yesterday, just walking by. Hello, Tom. So Tom Watson, which I don't have any ill feeling against Tom Watson. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a bit of a wanker, but I don't have any animosity toward him. Let's be clear. I just think he's a bit of a wanker. And Tom Watson immediately starts calling, Chris Williamson needs to be expelled by the party, which fortunately, to the best of my knowledge, is something which did not happen. So, let's go back then. Let's go back. Oops. Let's check out a couple of things there. Let's go back. Yes, let's go back. So, okay, so complete control of mainstream media is it's not a new thing, but now it's getting it's completely out of control. Control is completely out of control because you will find hardly any of these acts prepared to question any official narrative. It's not done anymore. It's not a done thing anymore. You don't question this narrative. Jeremy Corbyn is anti-Semitic, the Labour Party is anti-Semitic, Venezuela, everyone is starving, is a total disaster, we need regime change. I think that probably the situation in Venezuela is a lot better than in Colombia, for instance, where they have a civil war going on with the FARC revolutionary movement. They have the colossal opioid epidemics. Maybe 60-70% of the population is drugged up to their eyeballs. But the country that needs regime change, obviously, is not Colombia, is Venezuela. It is an interesting article on New Rockwell. Censorship tightens as government lose control. So yeah, that's part of it. There's increasing number of people questioning the official narrative, which is and then they try to maintain control of the official narrative in an even more aggressive manner, and then obviously they bring a lot more people to question the official narrative. So that's the way empires start falling apart, I suppose, by a guy called Thomas Longo. Oh, and then there is interesting instance that the poor woman, the mother of Julian Assange, Christine Assange, the Twitter decided to ban her account. We don't know why. And then you say, so they decide to ban Christine Assange account. Yeah, I think Christine Assange is also one of my Facebook friends. And and then people get so angry, so angry that they had to reinstate it. The Twitter had to reinstate Christine Assange account after that because people get so upset, understandably. But then look, underneath say Australian and New Zealand internet service provider have gone bonkers. IP blocking sites on the wake of the Christchurch massacre, so called. And then they going after Zero Edge. Sites like Zero Edge have been targeted in the past 2 weeks for published narrative orthogonal to what the government was are comfortable with people consuming. Yeah, consuming is the right word. Consuming, precisely. Consuming all this garbage they're feeding us from the cradle to the grave. Lies, propaganda, misinformation is information. First it was Facebook blocking and then unblocking Zero Edge. It's an interesting one on Facebook, and I don't particularly want to the bite hand which feeds me, so to speak. But it was quite an interesting one on Facebook because there was this US Senator. Oh, I wish I would remember her name. Oh no. That's a bit disreputable. I can't remember US Senator, unfortunately, I don't know. I know who this person is, but I can't remember the name at the moment. Sorry. And she posted something on Facebook asking for the Facebook to be, to be split up into too big, and a monopoly to be split up into a number of different. It's this Warren woman. I mean, I can't remember the first name. My God, sorry. I'm not supposed to say that I support this lady or their point of view. I'm just looking at the strangeness of this incident, whereby this U.S. senator, female U.S. senator, she's started posting stuff on Facebook, calling for Facebook to be dismembered and split up in a number of smaller units. And it's quite interesting because it's quite funny in a way because the Facebook, the first thing they did, they disappear or their post. Which then they like what happened with Twitter and Christine Assange, they were later reinstated. All of a sudden she's posting this post on Facebook calling for Facebook to be split into smaller units, and that all of a sudden, oops, all these Facebook posts they immediately disappear. And then it's only to reappear after a short while. So that's quite interesting. That's quite bizarre. Elizabeth Warren, yeah, that's the U.S. senator. Sorry, I'm not very good with name, which I should be. Elizabeth Warren. So yeah, that's quite bizarre. So it is also Zero Edge is very much in the crosshair at the moment, and then there's been Alex Jones. I don't think I support Alex Jones, but freedom of speech should be for everyone, even the people you disagree with. Otherwise, why call it freedom of speech? If you're only free to express to disseminate the pap being produced by mainstream media, that's not freedom of speech. So freedom of speech, as well, like it's been said many times, freedom to express opinion, which I may actually find distasteful or offensive, but otherwise, what is freedom of speech for? So let's go back to the this information. So the various Gab is Gab. I think people say, because there is all this fierce seriously, which I think is not conducive. It is like, you know, this thing like everything you say departing from the official narrative of the left, you know, of the official narrative of the left, then immediately people say, "Oh, you must be a fascist." And then if you go on the right end of the spectrum, if you say anything like, uh, if you say anything like disagreeing with the official narrative of the right, oh, you're a communist wanker or something. So that's I don't think is conducive because to me, it is part of the problem. It is part of the problem. Like uh, I know I'm not here. I'm here to tell you what I think. I'm not here to make new friends. So I mean, if you don't like what I'm saying, like, you're welcome to, unfriend me, do whatever, block me, do whatever, even report me. I don't know, you know. But like is happening with the Italian government. The Italian government, uh, it was formed by two different movements. One is the Northern League movement, which you may say is a right-wing party, and the Five Star Movement is actually a left-wing populist party. So they were both populist anti-establishment party, but the Northern League is right-wing, and definitely the Five Star Movement is actually left-wing. So you have two different anti-establishment populist parties, one from the left, one from the right, managed to get their head together and to uh, put together a political program. Let me tell you what their political program did include. It included giving people in Italy universal income, yeah, turn back on austerity and starting an economic program aimed at stimulating the economy, including the green economy, the creation of green job, and they've been, some of these politicians, they've been only government in Europe to oppose regime change in Venezuela. Otherwise, all these other Brussels creatures, they would have been able to say after a couple of days, this punk Guaido say, "Oh, I am the new president." So they try to have a unanimous declaration of the entire European Union, say the European Union support Juan Guaido in Venezuela. But then Italy, the Italian government, which is everyone say, "Oh, it's a fascist government, disgusting," is the Mussolini is back or something, this kind of stuff. Italian government say, "No, we don't support it." The only country in Europe, not even Hungary or Poland or some of the other country which want to have some friction with Brussels, they say, "Oh, yeah, Guaido, let's get regime change and a civil war in Venezuela, get 100,000 killed." Everyone was on the bandwagon, apart from the Italian government. We say, "No, we don't support regime change in Venezuela. We don't support Juan Guaido. We respect, we have, there is a democratic elected government in Venezuela. That is the government of Venezuela." So these people in Brussels, like, I don't want to use, I want to use I mean, I need to cut off on the profanities. These people in Brussels, let's call them people, they were unable to make a unanimous declaration about Venezuela, so there was left to these, like, the different countries like Germany, as this creature Macron in France, to say on an individual basis that they were supporting this individual Juan Guaido in Venezuela. So then people say, "Oh, we have this kind of very." It's not helpful. It's not helpful. I mean, if you say that you disagree with the main official gospel of the left, you're a fascist. If you say anything you disagree with the official gospel of the right or criticize Trump, you're a communist. So it's not helpful. I'm totally against that. I tell you. Since the time I was at university, I consider myself quite very much to the left of the political spectrum. But in recent time, I think not that I moved to the right, but I need no. I think we need to go beyond all this ideology because I mean to me I know I'm going to make Andrew enemies by saying this. I'm going to upset Andrew. Not just I know how many people are watching this stuff, but I mean, I'm going to upset a lot of people. But to me, if you look at the left, at the right, you have the politicians which are being controlled by the bankers on the left. For instance, you have all these Blairite MP in the Labour Party. And then you have some people really think with their own head, people with great integrity on the left, like people like Jeremy Corbyn, which, by the way, has always been opposed to the European Union, Brussels, and people like Chris Williamson, which I think is equally opposed to the European Union. And then if you look at the right, you have all these, again, alt-right controlled by the bankers. You see alt-right, even most of the alt-right, it's called alt-right, is completely controlled by the banker, they all the time they're making Islamophobic noises because that's what they completely controlled by the banker, by the state of Israel. So they all the time try to stir up Islamophobia because that's the agenda of the bankers, the state of Israel would pay their bills, basically, But they never would say a single word about the state of Israel, how it is controlling, interfering with our political system in this country, the United States, the horrific, unspeakable things they do to the Palestinian people. So this the bankers. So you have the bankers left, and you have the bankers right. And then you have people of integrity, or both on the left and the right, that people, on the right, there was people like Paul Craig Roberts, Jan Rappaport, which you may Peter Lavelle, even, Patrick Henningsen, even Vanessa Beeley. You may say or the people of the UK column, they may, they position, the people defending, the right of Melanie Shaw, for instance, which is mostly people from the right of the political spectrum, which we hardly ever find anyone on the left of the political spectrum, which is at any time to spend on what horrific thing being violence and being inflicted on Melanie Shaw at the moment. So abuse. I mean, so then you have the banker left, the banker right, for which I have no time whatsoever, and then you have people of integrity on the left of the right, even though if there is all this kind of very sectarian mentality, very you're not of my tribe, and most of the time you have there's some convergence, but then they cannot admit that there is a convergence because there's this tribal thing which dominates everything. So there is maybe between the people in some integrity, both on the right and on the left. Ron Ernst in the US is right wing, is man I greatly respect and admire, total integrity, denouncing. Well, I don't want to go into that, but so. But there's this tribal mentality. If you come from the right, I have to call you a fascist. There's no other way. So I was, I was listening to Chris Banbury, which is a person I greatly respect, but he's on the left of the political spectrum, like I was all my life myself since the university. But I was talking about the begrudgingly, the Italian government, they oppose regime change in Venezuela, but they still do unspeakable things, they're horrible people, they just come. But do you know, to take the trouble to, I have the great respect for Chris Banbury, but I mean, do you take the trouble to find out what some of the things the Italian government is doing in all kinds of different areas? Now they try to stimulate the economy, they try to make, to make economic deal with China. They're desperate to re-stimulate, revive the Italian economy. They want to institute universal income for all citizens. They want to move away from austerity. They oppose regime change in Venezuela. They offer great support for the Yellow Vest movement in Paris. Even you have some of the Di Maio, which is the leader of the Five Star Movement, went to Paris to meet up with some of the people of the Yellow Vest movement. So, I mean, but you have this tribal mentality. If by any hint that some of you are saying, or you are coming from the right, then you are not discussing no way of having any rational discussion. You are a fascist. You are a dirty fascist. You are an evil fascist. If for the people on the right, if you are coming from the left and like you are just disgusting communist, everything coming from the left. So it is divide and control. It's so perfect to have this kind of situation. The bankers, the terror financial banking cartel, the politicians, is so perfectly to have this kind of situation. People at each other's throats. So, let's see what other news I have for you today. Okay, Lew Rockwell, the excellent Lew Rockwell, which is, his website with all this excellent information. The censorship titans of government. The great big Brexit conspiracy. A great big Brexit conspiracy from YouTube. I'm not saying there is a big Brexit conspiracy. Just give me an opportunity to talk a bit about Brexit. So, I was born in Italy. I've been living for more than 30 years in this country. And I probably, I don't know what other people think. I consider myself a lot more British than Italian to me. For inclination, psychological inclination for... so I even, even before living in Italy, I did consider myself more British than Italian. But in terms of culture, in terms of outlook, etc. But, I must say, I mean, I don't know. It's very complicated. It's very complicated, Brexit. I was talking with some people yesterday in front of Parliament. They were saying, "Oh yeah, I probably lean more in toward Brexit." So I strange enough, I kind of lean more toward Brexit actually than to what the people would like to remain in the EU, but. And then I feel it. Then when I take this position, I feel a bit guilty in a way. It's complicated. So I tend slightly to lean a bit more. I'm not one of the sanguine Brexiteer, which talking about treason and stuff and all this bullshit, but. I tend to lean a bit more toward Brexit actually, but on a different level, I consider myself to be a bit of a Brexit agnostic. But if you look at the history of the European Union, I mean, the way they've been treating like Greece, which is thousands of people have been dying because of EU imposed austerity in Greece. I mean, it's not being melodramatic. Thousands of people have been dying in Greece because of when the people in Greece have been voted against austerity, the European Union have been ramming them down their throat. 1,000 of people have been dying, and the way they've been cutting public services in Greece is diabolical. If people think they've been cutting public services in this country, my God, you should go to Greece and have a look at the way they've been cutting public services in Greece. The way they've been treating Ireland, and then it's like people in Ireland, they're still totally traumatized by the way they've been used by abused by the European Union, because it's like, they have no legal obligation to bail out all this bank, impose horrific austerity on their own people, but Angela Merkel, the Germans say, "Oh, you better do a bailout in Ireland." So they, "Oh well, coming from Angela Merkel, you better comply." You know what it's like. I mean, so they imposed austerity. There was no legal obligation for them to do to bail out these criminal institution banks. And then after that, it's like the people in Ireland now suffering some kind of Stockholm syndrome, having been completely conquered, taken over by the European Union, and traumatized by the European Union. It's like they're suffering from some sort of Stockholm syndrome. So it's like people in Ireland now. It's like the EU is the new Catholic Church for people in Ireland. You can say anything against the EU. So Greece, Ireland, the way they've been treating Italy, as per usual, you know, um, Italian government wanted to turn their back on austerity and to have a budget promoting economic growth, green job, the green economy. Te Brussels say, no way, you need to go back to austerity because, constraint with regard to the deficit and all this kind of stuff. And the Italian government at first they say, no way, we are going to stick with our budget, and say, no, we are not, yes, we are, no, you're not. And then in fact, the Italian government had to cave in, so which I think is pretty disgusting. They thought they're forced to go back some more to austerity. But now they try to prevent them to making economic deal with China. You shouldn't do that. They try to rescue the Italian economy, to relaunch the Italian economy. No, you shouldn't do that. Yeah, let the country go to the fucking dogs. Everything falling apart. But you better not to try to develop, to restart the economy or deal with China. That's not allowed. Just let everything go to the freaking dogs, and that's what the EU is prescribing for Italy. That's what they want. So it is the way they've been treating most countries. Greece, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Ireland. And look at the way they treat this country. The best way to describe is constantly, very cleverly conspire to sabotage Brexit. They don't do anything too open, right? It's not like they do. They're very clever about it. They're constantly undermining Brexit. Yeah. And then you see what was happening for the Maastricht Treaty. The Danish voted against. The Irish at the time voted against before getting completely traumatized and brought into complete submission by the EU. And every time you get a government or a vote, a referendum which goes against Brussels, they just wear you down, and they wear you down. And they wear you down, they wear you down, they wear you down. And then people like, oh, whatever, do whatever you want. Yes, what you want us to do. That they deal with the people in Greece, that they vote against austerity, and they leader by leader, they take over the Syriza government. And then in the end, it was like, they were doing more austerity than actually were supposed to do by Brussels. There was a total austerity. They were cutting everything. So they wear you down. They're very clever. They wear you down. They wear you down. They wear you down. They did with Denmark, with Portugal, with Ireland, with Greece, with Italy. They wear you down. They wear you down. They're doing it with this country just now. They wear you down. They wear you down. Then people say, okay, fuck, whatever, do whatever you want. Yes, what you want us to do. So that's what's happening with the. So I am basically a Brexit agnostic because I acknowledge that there is a lot of young people, they maybe want to travel to Europe, they have unlimited access, and so I see both sides of the argument. I see both sides of the argument. I'm like, most of the time I like a Brexit agnostic. I just sit back and see what they're getting up to, what's going to happen. So honestly, I can see, the argument of the Remainer people. I can see the argument of the Brexit people. But beyond the thing about pros and cons, like you say, oh yeah, they're limiting the option of young people, which with after 8 years of austerity, they're already limited enough the option that young people have in this country. So then they cannot even escape to Europe now, to escape to some other country. So I can see both arguments. I can see that it's probably going to damage the economy. That can be avoided. So I am a bit of Brexit agnostic. I see the argument of the Brexiteers, I see the argument of the Remainers, and there's some merit in both. But I think, the main thing to me is we need some kind of rupture with the existing system. Right? We need some kind of rupture. And So I don't think Brexit is necessarily a good thing in itself. I think in Brexit is maybe a good thing because may bring some kind of rupture with the existing total iniquitous order of austerity, killing the disabled, the homeless, uh, because there is the only way to bring any kind of rupture to it. So Brexit can bring some kind of rupture in this country and the whole European Union, which can be achieved in any other way. Then if you get a rupture, then people maybe there's other thing, new things start to happen, and people that maybe start out of a rupture may start looking for new way of doing things. Because there is, for instance, this left-wing group in this country, which is called Another Europe is Possible, right? They're called, I think they're well-meaning. I'm sure they're nice people, well-meaning. And they say, Another Europe is possible. Let's stay in the EU and change it from the inside, which is a fucking joke. Because, like every time there's been a referendum or a vote or any government, they try to do something slightly different, like recently the Italian government or the referendum in Portugal, in Denmark, or in Ireland. They just sitting back, they wear you down, they wear you down, they wear you down, and then the people say, oh, whatever, do whatever. Yes, Brussels, what do you want us to do? Just tell us we're going to do it. So, the people say, I know that Europe is possible. No, it's not. It's a totally corrupt institution. When they built the actual building of the European Central Bank in Frankfurt, they actually use cheap foreign labor. That was the main pillar of this European institution, the European Central Bank, which now is printing money like there is no future anyway, printing and printing and printing. Printing money like there is no future, the European Central Bank, quantitative easing, and destroying our economy. And destroying the European economy, printing money. And it's when they built this palatial building for the European Central Bank, like the building of the pharaonic kind of, you can imagine. They spend. They were built not using German workers in Frankfurt, but they tried to bring in. Workers, they built the actual building by bringing cheap workers not from German builders, at least they were local, right? They employed the local people. Now they were bringing all kind of cheap workforce from all parts of Europe, even I understand from beyond Europe. So it does give you some idea of the total corruption, total corruption of the European Union. And another thing is this thing about the euro, which is a total abomination, because you can have a single currency with a unified interest rate with country as different as Spain and Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Germany, or completely in a different phase of the economic cycle, completely different economies. You cannot have. You can have a unified currency with a unified interest rate. Now, the people who created the euro, they were supposed to be all economists. So how comes that the economists thought that they launched this crazy thing called the euro? How come that economists could think that it could work to have a single currency with a unified interest rate for a country like Portugal and Germany, for instance, which are totally different economic cycle, totally different economies? They were economists. How could they possibly think that it was going to work? In fact, the euro, what little economic growth there was still in certain European countries is completely wiped it out, completely destroyed. So it started destroying the euro. After they introduced the euro, it started destroying the economy of countries like Portugal, Spain, Italy, Greece, and now it's moving up. It's moving northward. It's moving north. The economy of a country like France is a total, complete mess. Germany started to go into recession. So how come that the economists, they could think that having a unified currency with unified interest rates with countries so different could possibly work, right? How could they possibly think that? Yeah. So, but the thing, if a country run into economic trouble, yeah, that's one of the main economic principles. If a country like into economic trouble, there's things they can do to try to get out of trouble. One thing they can do is to modify the interest rate, right? Another thing they can do is to devalue their currency. Another thing they can do is to print money. Yeah? But after the creation of the euro, country like struggling, like you say Portugal, Spain, Greece, even Italy, they can no longer decide their interest rate. It's all decided by the European Central Bank. They can no longer print money. They can no longer devalue their currency. So they into this kind of horrific straitjacket, economic straitjacket. If they, if they run into recession or nothing whatsoever they can do. It's all down to the European Central Bank to decide the interest rate, to print money. One of the clause of the agreement they finally signed with Greece at the end of the crisis, and there were all this to and froing and Syriza party and the Prime Minister Psiras, and then there was the Economic Minister, the famous and excellent Varoufakis, and which now became a bit of an alternative media celebrity. Yanis Varoufakis, was really like the economy minister, secretary minister in Greece. Yanis Varoufakis. I think I was at one meeting in London where he was speaking or something at some point. So basically it's all in the hand of the European Central Bank, which is again completely controlled by the City of London, by the Terra Financial Banking Cartel, and now it is Mario Draghi, and now we have things like, the Mario Draghi. So if you look at the director of the European Central Bank, Mario Draghi, which happened to be Italian, but he was for a long time working for Goldman Sachs. When they got rid of Berlusconi, and that was a bit like, when they got rid of Berlusconi, people say, oh, good, we got rid of Berlusconi. But actually, Berlusconi, if only for political reasons, was very much against austerity. So when people got rid of Berlusconi, it was like falling from the frying pan into the fire, because then they brought in this guy, Mario Monti, which is again another Goldman Sachs individual, a former Goldman Sachs banker, and he started cutting everything. So at least Berlusconi needed to be re-elected by the people. So if only for that reason, that very reason, it was very much against austerity. But then they get just for this very reason, say, and then obviously Berlusconi was a very colorful character. So if they want to dig up something in his personal life, to some scandal to get rid of him, that was very easy, Someone like Berlusconi, my God, if you want to find some scandal to get rid of him, it's the embarrassment of riches. All the stuff was getting up to in his personal life. But the other thing is, it was a bit like falling from the frying pan into the fire, because Berlusconi, for political reasons, was very much, against austerity. Because he needed to be re-elected, maybe he needed to stay out of jail also, But So they didn't get rid of Berlusconi because of his personal scandal in his personal life. They got rid of Berlusconi. At the time, and I think the mainstream media, mainstream media out Peru, they create the fake narrative. Say, oh, finally, because of his corruption, we got rid of Berlusconi. No, the reason they got rid of Berlusconi at the time, former Italian Prime Minister, was because he was very much resisting austerity. It's not because of his scandal. His scandal has been going on for decades, and no one gave a toss about the scandal until he took a stand against austerity, because he was a politician, he needed to be re-elected. He also re-elected to stay out of jail because of all the scandals. So, and then that's the reason they got rid of him. And then he was, oh, nice, we get rid of this horrible Berlusconi, corrupt, totally corrupt. Oh, nice, we open a new chapter in Italian history. And they people didn't realize, because they're told by the mainstream media what to think. 99% of the time, people have been told by mainstream media what they're supposed to think. So they, oh, good, a new chapter in Italian political life. We got rid of Berlusconi. Then they were falling from the pan into the fire, from the frying pan into the fire, because then you get the Goldman Sachs Mario Monti, a technocrat that never been elected by anyone, but been appointed by the Terra Financial Banking Cartel and by the European Central Bank, and which again is directed by another Mario Draghi, which is another Goldman Sachs alumni. And Mario Monti started to cut down everything, public services, austerity, and but people, everything they think, the official narrative they be offered by mainstream media, most of the time doesn't bear any real connection with what is actually happening on the ground. So let's see if we can talk about a few more news. And the big Brexit conspiracy. Yeah, the big Brexit conspiracy is very simple, the big Brexit conspiracy is like they've been doing what many political movements or politicians or even when there was some referendum opposing or going against the European Union, they wear you down, until the politicians and the people say, okay, whatever, like they did in Greece, which just reads about, okay, look, take control, do whatever. I mean, we had enough. That's possibly what is going to happen in this country. So yeah, that's the thing about Brexit. That's what they're trying to do. And the fact that then we have Theresa May, which I don't think she is particularly decisive politician. No one can accuse Theresa May of being like someone thinking on his feet or taking bold decision or something. Then she's completely boxed in by the numbers in the House of Parliament, which hardly allow her to do anything particularly adventurous, And then we may also say that is also very much self-inflicted, because she was the one to call early elections. So, that's the perfect Theresa May there without any majority is the perfect person to be bullied to distraction by Brussels. They wear you down until people say, okay, whatever, tell us what you do and get done with it. We need a rupture, because there's the left-wing movement saying, like in this country, it's called another Europe is possible. But I mean, best of luck, mates. But another Europe is possible, but it's not. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't think it's possible until you get, at least unless you get some kind of rupture, like for instance this country getting out of the EU. No, I know that you won't ever be able to change this monster from the inside. I don't think people will ever be able to change. It's a nice idea, It's, oh yeah, we avoid all the mess of the Brexit and stuff. We are going. It's a very, very, very fascinating and attractive idea. Oh, let's change it from the inside. It's not going to happen. All right. It's not going to happen. So, that's a good one. The sugar conspiracy. Paper expose industry plot to frame fat for heart disease. That's very interesting, because it's a bit reminiscent of what they've been doing with fluoride and all some of the other diabolical machination. So basically, what this article also showed, that all the science we are supposed to have about sugar, about fat, about fluoride, about vaccines, is all a lot of bullshit. Okay, total. So it's all dictated by corporate interest. So don't believe anything stuff is all dictated by corporate interest. it would appear, what seems to have been happening is that they completely, there was all these studies about the detrimental effect of sugar, and it was totally obvious, totally apparent that sugar is totally poisonous, right? Particularly refined sugar. But all this information was suppressed, and they, basically what they did, actually, look at this nice picture there, which is, look at the nice picture of, look at the nice picture there. What they did instead, instead of blaming sugar, they actually tried to spread false information about blaming for some of the, some of this disease, obesity, other similar disease. They, what they did was to try to blame saturated fats. Actually, when all this information is being revisited, they say actually that there is many beneficial effect of fats and saturated fats, while sugar is actually totally poisonous, causing obesity, diabetes, you name it. Right. So that's quite interesting. I'm sure this information is totally accurate. It's been, is probably in a couple of days, this article has been published by Waking Times, which is an excellent, fantastic. I would advise everyone to subscribe to Waking Times. Which can easily be done entering your email address, and then you get every day some fantastic information. Basically, from it's the same thing is happening when they were trying to, I can bring to the table a lot of different information, like they falsify all the information about GMO. They've been arm twisting politicians to adopt GMO. Russia is saying, no, we don't want this kind of gobshite in our countries, but unfortunately, because pollen can travel up to 800 miles, there's even countries say like, oh, we're going to ban this kind of garbage. They're probably going to be subjected to enormous financial and pressure, all kinds of pressure through the bankers. Even in Russia, a lot of the financial world you'll be surprised to hear this, because you think, oh, Putin is a dictatorship, is a monolithic structure or something. No, in Russia there is, as a heritage, the legacy of the 90s, a lot of financial ministries and corporations. It is ruled by pro-Western billionaire and oligarchs. So they're thinking, oh, Russia is like this monolithic authoritarian structure, which is all bullshit. No, Russia, there is a lot of financial ministries and financial institutions that are controlled by this economist, that is oligarch, that is billionaire, which is like, instead of looking to Russia, they look into the West. Even, there is a name for them, they call the Atlanticists, because they look into NATO instead of being supporting their own country. So there you go. But by even country like Russia, we try to ban this horrible stuff. I mean, pollen travels a piece of pollen can travel 800 miles. So I mean, there is no safety from all this entire agricultural system to be eventually completely destroyed, subverted. There is no protection from this garbage, because the pollen travels up to 800 miles. So eventually, once you get this genie, they think it's a good idea to put the genie of a spider into some wheat or some corn or something, these crazy people. So once the genie is out of the bottle, every crop in the world is going to get contaminated by this gobshite, unfortunately. Excuse my French. So let's have a look. So that's about sugar. Oh, it is quite interesting. It is a bit reminiscent of what they did with, it is a bit reminiscent of what they did with fluoride. It's I can see very much parallel there. Let me tell you what they did with fluoride. Because we're going back to the 20th to 30, and increasing aluminum was taking a central role in building airplanes, building cars, building everything. So they find it's very strong, very lightweight. So it's a migration of industrial production, the increasing adoption of aluminum as being building airplane, building all kind of stuff instead of other materials. So they were producing a huge amount of aluminum. We're talking about the 20th to 30s. I've been rather extensively about the subject. I may not remember all these minute details, but basically what was happening. So they were producing. The thing about producing aluminum is there is a byproduct created in huge quantity, which is fluoride. So at the time they were producing the increasing amount of aluminum for the industrial production. And the downside is that they were also, the more aluminum they were producing, there was all this fluoride, enormous amount of fluoride. They didn't know what to do with it. They knew this stuff was totally toxic. They knew this stuff was totally toxic, but they had to spend a huge amount of money because at the time there was still, they think, okay, it's like, 20 or 30s, there was still some sanity, some integrity. So we have all this horrible stuff and we know it's toxic, so we don't just feed it to people. We just try to get rid of it with some kind of, at the 20 or 30, people were not entirely crazy like now. There was still some sanity, integrity around. So they okay, it's totally toxic. We don't just can just throw it around in the ground or in the rivers or feed it to people because that will be wrong. So it was intuitive. So they were spending a huge amount of time to get rid of all the fluoride, which was a byproduct in the production of aluminum. But then, at some point, I think it was the mid-30s, they decided to start this totally preposterous thing that fluoride into water is good for your teeth. It's actually, apart from being toxic, totally toxic to the nervous system, making people lethargic and passive, aluminum is proved to be very aggressive in corroding and destroying your teeth. So they start all this media like campaign in the American media in the US, starting in the US, and all fluoride is wonderful. We have found this thing that will solve all your problem in the tooth decay problems, and you start using fluoride, putting fluoride into water, into your toothpaste everywhere. You're fantastic, we'll solve all your problem. You're never going to go to the dentist ever again. And all this little campaign of all that stuff. Well, all this stuff was the legacy of people like Edward Bernays, which was a nephew of Sigmund Freud. So that's where started all this kind of brainwashing people with all this kind of nonsense, But anyway, and then we found out that the public campaign to persuade people I don't remember all the small details, but I remember all the main facts. We're talking maybe mid-30s to late 30s. That there was this big public campaign, public information campaign. They were telling everyone fluoride, fluoride, put fluoride into water, put fluoride in your toothpaste. I will never have to go to the dentist ever again, this kind of stuff, And then we found out that the person which is in the federal government was running this campaign was actually a former executive in some company, Alcoa, is the one of the former top executive in a company who's one of the bigger aluminum producer in the world. I think it may have been Alcoa actually. So this guy, which is then moved to the federal government, started this public information campaign telling people that the fluoride is wonderful for your teeth. You're never going to have to go to the dentist ever again in the future. We put fluoride into water, toothpaste, it solved all tooth decay problems, stuff. He was actually a former top executive of this company, which may have been Alcoa, I think, which was possibly the top aluminum producer in the world at the time. So he moved from being one of the top people in Alcoa to directing this federal government public information campaign, telling people that so at least I wouldn't say that was taking care of all the aluminium the fluoride production. They probably just at this point they probably started dumping the stuff in rivers and lakes and things and in the ground everywhere. but at least one of these, some portion of all these fluoride production that started to go into the people drinking water, into people toothpaste and stuff. So at least they found that total, and so they instead of having to pay to dispose of fluoride, they were actually making a profit out of putting fluoride into water, in toothpaste, etc. Then the rest of the fluoride, which is a huge amount, they're probably just dumping everywhere, river, lakes, grounds, as you do. So that's quite interesting. So I mean, I'm afraid to tell you that what most of this that is what we consider to be scientific fact that they're actually basically guided by a corporate agenda. And the more I dig into this subject, or most of the what people consider to be they're all driven by a corporate agenda, profit and lies, total lies. Often, they're just telling people the opposite of what is actually the truth, so not just lies. This is another interesting article, because watching people give frank opinion to Tony Blair will restore your faith in humanity. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I sometimes I feel just a bit like, a bit feel sorry, like for Tony Blair. I mean, the guy is so screwed up mentally, so screwed up that I'm not, this guy is, oh my God, I don't know if you heard the expression, like crazy, like a shithouse rat. I mean, that's often come to mind when you think of Tony Blair. The guy is so screwed up mentally, you almost feel sorry for him. But anyway, they just collected, there was he was interviewed by the journalist Andrew Marr on the Andrew Marr show. It was like blabbing away and pontifying, like, about Brexit, about this and that, the total arrogance, that were completely oblivious of the fact that he's one of the most hated people in this country. I mean, and so, but that's all, you can see that what people in this country which think of him, which is quite good. Now he's trying to, amongst other things, is after being instrumental to you have told this creature, after having been instrumental, quite central to the genocide perpetrated against millions of Iraqi people, that once he retired, he would have been somewhat repentant, or tried to make amends for his crimes, right? No, instead, if so instead, what he did, he managed, because he have some very good friends, obviously, fellow criminals. They look after each other sometime, and so he managed to get this job as, imagine that. You probably know, maybe you don't know, but he got this job for several years as the Middle East peace envoy. So he was supposed to help out to create some, I don't know, two-state solution, some peace between the state of Israel and the Palestinians. To the best of people's knowledge, he never bothered to do anything at all about that. But it's like putting a pedophile in charge of a crash. I mean, he was in charge of the peace process in the Middle East, in Palestine. And then apparently, it's in about, so he was getting a huge amount of taxpayer money to do not to do the stuff. He was getting private jets, all kind of perks, money, looting taxpayer money with total abandonment. And what he seemed to have been doing, he was using his position to mediate arms deals between British Aerospace and the Saudis and the United Arab Emirates people and the Kuwaitis, and as it so happened that after a few years of this racket going on, his wealth raised to we are probably all figured, God knows now, but I mean, it was in the region of £50 million. We don't know where did he get the money. Because when he was a politician in Islington, he was struggling to pay his mortgage, and then a few years after being the peace envoy to the Middle East, he was worth 50 million pounds. So but no, we know he was brokering all this deal within different Gulf country, British aerospace, armed deals and stuff. So was his job as a peace envoy to the Middle East. Helping to arm Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates and Doha and the rest of it, Qatar. So yeah, and then like after some people do horrible things, but they repent. They try to turn a new page. Some people commit horrific crime, politicians, but then there come a point in their life that they can see, my God, what I have done. They try to make amends. They try to do other things, like maybe Jimmy Carter. Well, he was a U.S. president, so he probably did some horrific thing as a U.S. president, but then now he's going around the world as a peace envoy, try to. That's a good example. He was supporting. He was as a observer to the Venezuelan election. They say, that was totally fair and square. So they try to make amends. Not Tony Blair though. No, he was like spending his like all the few years as a peace envoy, selling out to the Soviet, to the other countries of the region. Making a huge amount of money, and now amongst the other things he's trying to do now, this creature is, he tried to say, okay, let's remain in the European Union, and that is his privilege. That is his point of view. But another thing he's trying to do is every other day he's trying to say something to undermine Jeremy Corbyn and the current leadership of the Labour Party. So, obviously, this criminal is totally evil and unrepentant. I think Tony Blair is so screwed mentally. Look at that. You almost have to feel sorry. Look at his face. Look at but you almost to feel sorry for him. But he's so screwed mentally, Tony Blair, that you almost to feel sorry for him. The people in this country. Intuitively, they know who Tony Blair is, and that's why 80% of people in this country, they don't dislike him, they fucking hate him, a bit like the figure for Macron in France. And I think Macron is possibly France's new Tony Blair, whilst Guaido is, Venezuela wannabe Tony Blair. But this is nice. The striking normality of daily life in Caracas, Venezuela. On the ground account. So there was John McEvoy was there, independent journalist, writing for the Canary, and also, as I said, Max Blumenthal was there filming, and so. And then you get all this, look at the protest in France. Look at the protests in France and in Haiti, where they tried to again support some philo bankers desperate to suppress the protest. The protest in Italy have been suppressed even more brutally than in France, but no one is saying anything about that. Saudi Arabia is, the stuff they get up to is they're totally unspeakable. But that's terror. Venezuela, which is now very much 80% of the people are against any kind of foreign intervention, and it seems that they managed to restore a degree of calm. Venezuela needs to be regime change. Okay, so they can start a civil war, getting hundreds of thousands of casualties, which there's something obviously getting off on this stuff, and transform Venezuela like Libya, where Libya they don't have a civil war in Libya, because to have a civil war in Libya you have two different factions vying to control the country, but in Libya there are 4 or 5 different governments, so it's not just 2. So you can technically say they have a civil war because they actually 5 or 6 different factions all try to get to take control of the country. That's Libya, and that's what they would like to do to Venezuela, obviously. They're still trying, sabotaging bombing the power station and taking cyber control, power station, etc. there's plenty of evidence that this stuff is coming straight out of Washington, and then they say, there's there's been a power shortage with the poor people of Venezuela. I mean, first they cause this stuff to happen, and they say, it's the poor people of Venezuela. They really care about the people of Venezuela, in Washington. They really feel for the people of Venezuela, They really feel for the people of Venezuela in Washington. It is interesting what happened in Puerto Rico, because it's quite interesting to see what was happening in Puerto Rico after the Hurricane Maria, I think, if I remember correctly, if my memory doesn't fail me. There was Hurricane Maria, then there was Puerto Rico. It's quite interesting because Puerto Rico, I think, was without power for up to 6 or 7 months. Completely power outage for 6. No one in Washington gave a shit. They gave a shit of something. There was a power outage in Puerto Rico after the hurricane for up to 6 or 7 months. Total power outage. Right? The people in Washington, they were not even interested to find out about it, let alone doing something about it. But when they get their minions to bomb some power station in Venezuela to completely take over the power grid, cyber takeover of the power grid, and it caused maybe 2-3 days of power outage, maybe lasting, I don't think it was even lasting day, probably lasted hours. So the people in Washington, which are totally indifferent to the fact that Puerto Rico was left without power for up to 6-7 months, the people in Washington, all of a sudden they become so concerned about the poor people of Venezuela being left without any power for a few hours. All the people in Washington, oh my God, Marco Rubio, all these criminals, these psychopathic criminals, they start really being concerned about the people of Venezuela. It's quite interesting. Well, at the time when the United States was trying to get all these weapons into Venezuela, sorry, not weapon, I didn't say weapon, I mean aid into Venezuela, President Trump decided to completely cut all previous economic aid to Puerto Rico. So they gave a bit of money to Puerto Rico. They don't really care. 7 months of power outage. The country completely, the economy completely devastated. They gave a bit of money, but then President Trump, just at the time when they tried to get all these weapons into Venezuela, because they were very concerned about the people of Venezuela, so they tried to get all the convoy with the weapons in Venezuela. President Trump, just in the same couple of days, they decided to cut all, economic aid to Puerto Rico after the hurricane, because power outage for 6-7 months. We gave you a bit of money. Now you can fuck off and go fuck yourself. But in spite of that, they were very concerned about the people of Venezuela, so they wanted to give them arms and weapons and cause a civil war there. In spite of not giving a shit about the people of Puerto Rico, they can go and fuck and die and fuck off and die and somewhere else. And so there you go. But there you go. That's interesting, because Israel tried to pressure Ireland to block a pro-Palestine bill. So that's very, very, very common. So, everyone's saying, I explained before at length. So any country, any political party, any politician, any activist try to, support the right of the Palestinian people, they probably, they end up getting beaten into submission. So you get pressure, economic pressure, you get political pressure, you get accusation of entities, anti-data, individual people get completely smeared. They use all the terabytes of information to dig up something on people. If you can't dig up anything, make it up. And if you can, otherwise they get some woman to come forward with some fake allegations. So, so in a way, the people try to feel some concern for the plight, horrific plight of the Palestinian people, who just take a brown beaten into submission. Afterwards, they just give up because, losing their job, losing their family, then they just give up, losing their reputation, getting the crosshair of the Israeli lobby. Most people just give up. So let's see if you're going back to the news. Our last chance to stop Article 13. Now, Article 13, which is supposed to impose a really draconian, is being passed by the European Parliament to apply to the entire European Union. And most people, watch reality TV, and this is if you want, there you can Google it and sign the petition to your member of the European Parliament if you live in Europe. So basically, this Article 13 is a totally draconian copyright legislation, which basically would allow them to ban any kind of material from the internet, from website, from social network, on the pretense that that is in breach of some copyright. So if I like, let's say, to make an extreme example, if I make a post on Facebook like saying Google is an evil criminal organization, they may not be able to object to the fact that they're accusing Google of being a pernicious organization, an evil organization, but they can say, oh, you used the trademark name Google, so you're not allowed to. So basically, they're not really interested in copyright. This is part of all this pincer movement to go from the relative situation of freedom of speech we had a couple of years ago, very quickly, very rapidly, to a situation when everyone is totally terrorized to say anything out of turn. What's going to happen to me? I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to get a knock on the door from law enforcement. I'm going to lose my family. I'm going to get completely discredited. Anti-this, anti-that, whatever. So there you go. So Article 13, this is going to be really a game changer in the world of the internet. But it's going to be really, if they pass this legislation, there are a few voices opposing it, right? There are a few voices opposing it. Very few people seem to be aware this thing is even happening. Whilst all the other people, they're probably busy worrying about their debt, holding down 3 different jobs to feed their kids, and and surviving, and then got home in the evening, they slumped into like some sofa, and to get taking all the propaganda, all the lies and the brainwashing from the BBC, Sky News, and the rest of it. So once people are busy doing this stuff, they are most completely, anyone hardly any awareness that they're passing this very draconian Article 13 copyright directive, which may block you from saying anything on account that anything you say, you name a company, oh, that is copyrighted, you name a company, you say they are evil, you can say that, not because you're saying they are evil, but because you mentioned the name of the company, and that is copyrighted. So it's totally draconian. You will take away what little minuscule freedom of speech you still have left. Most people are not even aware that this stuff is going on, like with most things. So they're going to find out eventually. If you're interested, there you go. Okay. Right, and this is an article about Baluchistan and Yemen, twin fronts against Iran. And that is a very specialized article, like you say, oh, why I should give a proverb about what's happening in Baluchistan and Yemen. And in Yemen there's a horrific genocide going on. So, thousands of people are dying every day, so maybe you should be interested. But, so, what is this? What this thing stuff has to do with me? I don't care about this stuff and nonsense, But it's quite relevant, because it would appear that after the Greater Israel project of completely destroy Syria to create a Greater Israel failed miserably, because it actually is end up like reinforcing, to a degree at least, some of the country called the axis of resistance to the Israeli regime, which are the country which are the only country in the world that have some concern about the fate of the Palestinian people. So this axis of resistance include like Iran and Syria And and now Turkey seems to be getting a bit closer to this axis of resistance, and also Iraq, and then Lebanon. There is the strongest Hezbollah presence in Lebanon. So it seems that actually they were trying to completely destroy Syria, so they could steal the aquifer, they could steal the oil and light, they could steal the oil in the Mediterranean outside the coast of Syria, and basically, establish themselves as the only superpower in the region. That they already destroy Iraq, like the US government destroy Iraq for them. So this was this great Israel project. They completely destroy Syria, have a caliphate. They don't mind about having a caliphate in Syria as long as they can control it, pull the string, and steal all the oil, the water, and the Golan Heights, and everything can be stolen. The marbles and the monuments and the organs of the people in Syria, and to sell them on the trafficking organs. So it was a bonanza for them. But then they got stopped at Damascus. Russians stopped them at Damascus, these criminals, and that was, you may say, like the Nazi, they were stopped at Stalingrad, and these criminals, they were stopped on the doors of Damascus by Russia, which there is a country which is serious about fighting terrorism, because they really felt threatened by terrorism. They say, we're fighting a war on terrorism, this kind of bullshit. They are really shitting themselves about terrorism, the Russians. So they're quite serious about fighting it. And so these criminals were stopped on the door of Damascus, you may say, like the Nazis were stopped at Stalingrad. But now, these people, they get defeated on one front, they immediately start some new horrific, unspeakable machination. So now what they're trying to do is to completely isolate Iran on two fronts, completely take over Yemen and turn it into a country hostile to Iran, and then completely get anti-Iranian terrorism in Balochistan, which is still a province of Pakistan. So as soon as they've been defeated in Syria, they immediately, the day after, they all come up with new unspeakable, horrific, the satanic plan to completely, again, going after Iran all over again. So now they already created two fronts to go after Iran. One is in Yemen, which the main thing about Yemen is going after Iran, and then they start to sponsor anti-Iranian terrorism in Balochistan, which is still a province of Pakistan, bordering Iran. So, they get defeated in Syria. They mean a day after, they may come up with new diabolical satanic plan to destroy Iran, which is, destroy Iran like some European politicians understand is may have a horrific effect. A war in Iran can have, it's not like not the European politicians are opposing Trump insanity about Iran because of their good nature. They realize, they're quite close to the Middle East, the European politicians. They realize that they realize in full what they be, if there was a war involving Iran, they realize in full all the economic, political, effects. So that's why European politicians, they try to keep the Iran deal going, not because they're nice people, but because they're quite aware of the consequences of a possible war with Iran. So what other news I have for you today? This is an article about Michelle, by a lady called Michelle Goldberg. It's a Kushner Incorporated, privilege and sociopathy, clueless in Washington. So it's referring to this strange marriage between Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner. So as I mentioned before hooking up with Jared, Ivanka was actually dating. That's a fact. It's not a conspiracy theory. Nat Rothschild, the son of Jacob, in London for 2 years. So talk about being in bed with Rothschild. That give quite new meaning to the expression being in bed with Rothschild. But then apparently, possibly, it was a bit too much high up the food chain, Nat Rothschild. So it's like Ivanka had to settle for some sort of poor man Rothschild, which was precisely Jared Kushner. So this, this article is about some of the sociopathy and psychopathy of these two individuals, which, I'm not Trump bashing. I'm not interested in Trump bashing. I go after the fact. It's like, so the article saying some convincing evidence, some politician is a psychopath, is a pernicious, dangerous psychopath. Then I talk about the article. I know anti-Trump, I know pro-Trump. I mean, if you think this guy is going to drain the swamp, what I can say to you, good luck, best of luck. So, yes. And there's another good article from Ed Jewett on the Public Intelligence blog, which is being created by Robert Steele. And this is run really deep, this article, in what is going on in the world at the moment. It's by this guy, Ed Jewett. How the Zionists created a state of submissive anomy. Oh, you can call it, sometimes I call it zombification, but in a rather unsophisticated way, I call it zombification. With Hollywood, television, mass media, and now Google Gestapo. And then it qualified social media controlled by the Anti-Defamation League, anti-IPAC, all the 20,000 organizations which are part of the IPAC Spiderweb, and let's not forget the Southern Poverty Law Center, which are miring horrific scandals of this organization, but it's like it doesn't happen because it's not being reported by the media. So that's a little taste of what's going on with the zombification. The zombification is not happening in a vacuum. Zombification is happening through Hollywood, television, mass media, Google, social networks. And there's this like this surveillance network, but there is also on top of the surveillance network, which is like a social radar. They give them some early warning about the people saying things about the state of Israel or Zionism, other things, not just that, other things also, and then taking preventive action and smearing the individual in question and doing stuff like that. But on top of that, you have also this, so it's a network. On top of it, you have a spider web, which one of the people at the center of it is actually Pierre Omidyar, which is one of the founder of the Intercept. They intercepted all the information coming out of Snowden, so that now only less than 1% is in the public domain after several years. So it's called the Intercept because they basically use the Pierre Omidyar money to intercept all this file. And it's quite bizarre because I have the greater respect for Glenn Greenwald. So I don't know how we can I think can be in bed with someone like Pierre Omidyar. I mean, that's how people get nervous breakdown and get needed to self-medicate because Glenn Greenwald is a man of great integrity, but he's in this kind of incestuous relation with Pierre Omidyar. I don't know if you self-medicate or if you take Valium it's kind of abusive relationship with Pierre Omidyar. So I don't know he's managed to cope because he's actually a man of great integrity. But yes, so that is an interesting article. Go a bit deeper to show what's happening with the general, zombification of the masses. You look a bit into the actually, under the bonnet to see what's happening with the zombification of the masses. Oh, and then from next week, or from tomorrow, Macron, this horrible creature, Rothschild creature, to deploy French army against Yellow Vest protests. So that's really a very lovely new development from Macron, So I said many times, he's not a conspiracy theorist. Macron, by profession, he was a banker. In the past, he was working. I know, don't. It's not a conspiracy. You can check it out for yourself. I understand why you may think this. I'm making it up, but Macron, as a banker, he was working for Rothschild Paris, mergers and acquisitions. That's a fact. Then he was, for 2 years, he was working in the background like Rasputin in the previous government with the previous president, François Hollande. He was the guy presiding over the architect of austerity, so murdering a lot of poor and disabled and homeless French people. But he was very much in the background, because they probably already decided they were going to appoint him as the next president. These people don't get elected, that they get appointed by the bankers, yeah? That if you believe they're getting elected, you are welcome. But so they was still in the background. It was the with the previous president. It was in the background, creeping in the shadow and designing. He was the architect of austerity. So it was very instrumental. Even before becoming president, he was already killing French people, the disabled, the homeless, the poor. So it was already doing that, but then it was very much in the shadow doing that, pulling the string and stuff. Then he disappeared for a couple of years because they wanted he was supposed to be appointed as the new man, so they put back into the whatever it was coming from, and for a little while under stone or something, and then after a couple of years he was appointed by the banker as the new man, the fresh face after murdering. His record of murdering, creating austerity in France and murdering French people. And other people now, what to expect? At the end of the day, what do you expect? You may say, look, so now this criminal is going to use the French army against the French people. So after Wednesday meeting of the Council of Ministers, French government spokesman Benjamin Griveaux announced that President Emmanuel Macron would activate army units during this weekend Yellow Vest protest. So that's this tomorrow. Let's see what happens tomorrow in France. Right. Oops. Okay, we get a bit of... let's see if we can go back. So tomorrow, look out for tomorrow what's going to happen in France when they're going to use the army again for the first time against the Yellow Vest in France. I express my solidarity with the Yellow Vest movement, and I'm wearing my little yellow vest here. And the Italian government did also express solidarity with the Yellow Vest, even they get even the vice president, the vice prime minister Di Maio, he went to Paris just to meet some of the Yellow Vest people. It was the only, it was the only. They were opposing the. But if you talk to anyone on the left about the Italian government, they're horrible fascists. They're all horrible fascists. So because this tribalism between the left and right, and then as I said before. Whilst the left and the right, they are each other's throat, the bankers are laughing all the way to the bank. So, let's have another look, see if I have any other interesting news for you. Okay, yes. And then there is Sandy Hook's shooter psychiatrist arrested. So this seems that that's not about questioning the official story about Sandy Hook, because that is a criminal sin and capital sin or something, capital offense or something about. So I'm not questioning the official version of what happened at Sandy Hook, mainly because I can't be bothered. But apparently, this what is the name of the guy? Or the Lanza individual, the alleged shooter, psychiatrist. That was a very colorful character. This psychiatrist engaging in rape, dragging up people, causing the death of people. So it was interesting. So he fled for a while to New Zealand, I think. And then he came back to the US. And in spite of the totally corrupt judicial system, there seems some people with integrity, so he got arrested and charged for his numerous crimes. That was the Sandy Lance person psychiatrist, which seemed, even by the standard of psychiatry, seemed to be a really piece of garbage. But and then yellow was moving on, yet changing its color to green. So that is about the fact that just once for last week, it was from Consortium News, which also they're very strong in the defense of Julian Assange. So it would appear that for the first time last week in Paris, all over France, there was also green protests. The green protest, there was a one-off green protest about the destruction of the planet, say. And it was quite a large protest, probably larger than the actual green yellow vest protest. It seemed like there was maybe 40,000 green protesters and 15,000 yellow vests. But you also to consider that the yellow vest may have been a bit outnumbered by the green vest. But they've been doing this stuff for 18 weeks now. 18 weeks. So I mean, so But anyway, it's the relationship between the two. It's about the relationship between the two. Relationship between the two protests, and seemed that there was a lot of working together and. A lot of people going to the green protest wearing yellow vests and stuff. So there was a bit of unease in certain areas. So people of mutual suspicions, but also there's most of these protests end up merging together, the green and the yellow. And so there was, but overall, there was no conflict. There was a good working relationship. And that was last weekend. Whilst this weekend, tomorrow, we are going to have the French army going after the new yellow vest protest tomorrow. So we'll see what happens. They managed to maim and blind and kill a few more people, which, there's quite, I think, I don't know, there have been, I think they say 12 deaths so far, and 20 people lost one eye, and there was this grenade, which is quite, the thing is quite, it's quite confusing because they call tear gas grenades. So you think tear gas, okay, got it, some problem with my nose, with my eyes, but then I'm going to be right. No, these things are called grenades because they explode. When they get in contact with people, they explode. So there have been a number of people losing their hands and losing their limbs because this grenade, so it's not tear gas, that's not the issue. This thing explodes. They're metallic canister which explode. They've been tearing away all the limbs and the arm of many, many people. And then there are 500 of these protesters which are receiving life-changing injuries. So they're not about tear gas, they're grenade. They targeting people with grenade and water cannon and rubber bullets, which are the size of a golf ball. So that's why 20 plus people have been losing one eye. Some of them were innocent bystanders. They were just watching what was going on. It's not part of the protest. They lost one eye for just being there. There you go. And so yellow was moving color to green. So that's what happened last week. And yes, that what happened last week. Let's have a look at. So that's something I mentioned before. After pressure on Twitter, Christian Assange account is restored. What's say about Venezuela? Oh yeah, but they restored Christian Assange account, but then now they're going against Telesur. Telesur is, as I said before about Venezuela. Like in this country, like in the United States, there is a small number of press barons and conglomerates which control maybe 95% of all the media, mainstream media. So all this, they say, they interrupted Terrero, to say, oh, it is poor people in Venezuela, they don't have any freedom of speech. As soon as they take something, they end up in jail. This is total bullshit, because actually, this press baron, which controls most of the press in Venezuela, up to 95%, they constantly spinning and making horrible allegations against the government, against Maduro. They even quite often they call for the assassination of Maduro, and they're getting away with it. So if that is no freedom of speech, who can say anything in Venezuela without getting arrested? Yeah, they even call for the assassination of Maduro. They don't want to do anything about it. So that, I think, is quite a good amount of freedom of speech. When you call for the assassination of the president, you get away with it. That's what I would call good freedom of speech. But so anyway, to make a long story short, this Telesur is one of the, just 90%, 95% of all the media in Venezuela, they died against the government. They say horrible thing, scurrilous allegation, insult, call for the assassination of Maduro all the time. And then there is Telesur, which is one of the few media which actually supporting the government. But not to worry about that, because now apparently Twitter is banning Telesur. So after the death to restore Christina Assange account, at least they take some comfort on the fact that they immediately say, okay, well, we are restoring Christina Assange account, but at least we're going to delete Telesur account. So, which is one of the few teeny media which is actually in Venezuela support the government. So, good reasons, yeah. There we go. So they, at least they even though they had to restore a Christina Assange account, they immediately they try to do something else. So now they deleted Telesur account, which is one of the few teeny media in Venezuela which support the government. There you go. What else I have to tell you? This year, after shock and awe, and West anti-war movement is fragmented, conflicted, but not dead yet. Yeah, that's I think from Adam Tex and Adam Gary, and yeah, that's that's the way it is. There is some anti-war movement, even though a lot of people in now it seems that between the media, even between the left, it seems that the warmonger has become a, the new, there's still some anti-war movement around, but, it seems that now warmongering and creating tension with Russia is now, most people in the media and even so-called left-wing politicians, I think, is, yeah, that's the done thing, Put us all at risk of nuclear holocaust, and that's a good idea for the journalists. They get promotion, job, money, so let's warmonger. They will give a shit about the future of humanity. Let's warmonger. Right, Brazil stand with the resistance against Jair Bolsonaro. That whatever you think about this geezer Bolsonaro, the thing is, there's some really amazing thing been happening in Brazil, But let me tell you shortly about the truth about Brazil. Let me tell you shortly. So in Brazil, at some point there was this lady president, which was a lady called Dilma Rousseff, which is probably, in a country like Brazil with a lot of corruption, Dilma Rousseff was probably one of the most honest women in Brazil. Like it is the Dilma mentor and predecessor, Lula da Silva. She's doing a huge amount of things to improve the lot of poor people in Brazil. She was one of the more honest politicians and people in Brazil. And then you get this situation when you get all this a little clique of powerful Brazilian politicians. Yeah, all of them. So you have to wonder this. You have to pinch yourself, really. But so you have this. This cabal of Brazilian politician, and if you look at all the life of this politician, they were all being indicted for corruption. They've been, most of these politicians that got together, this cabal, they have been in prison previously, they have been indicted for corruption, they were on trial for corruption. So some of the most corrupt politicians in Brazil, but very powerful though, and they get all together, and they, on some minor infringement, possibly due to some election spending, they impeach and get rid of Dilma Rousseff, which the president, which actually I think was one of the most honest politicians, not only in Brazil but in the world. And they replaced, this Dilma. It was a coup. Yeah, it was a coup. You get some of the more corrupt politicians in Brazil, which have been in prison, indicted for corruption, horrific things, get together, gang together, and on some minor infringement relating possibly to electoral spending, they impeach and get rid of Dilma Rousseff, the president, which she was elected with maybe 80% of the popular vote in Brazil. So it was a coup. It's coup d'etat. A coup d'etat. They get rid of Dilma Rousseff. And they replaced it. One of their own is a guy called, a Brazilian politician called Temer. I don't remember the first name. I can't remember everything. But, I do my best. But this guy is the guy they replaced with this geezer, which has been in prison for corruption. He was indicted several times for corruption. He has a process, is a trial for corruption just coming on. So that's the guy. So this was one of the most honest women in Brazil. To be replaced by one of the members of this cabal of corrupt politicians, which managed to get rid of the legitimately elected president, Dilma Rousseff. And then, so this was, it was a coup d'etat, they don't involve the army, but it was a coup d'etat, yeah. And then, the problem is that then after a few years, according to the Brazilian constitution, 2 or 3 years elapsed, and then there was another election coming, and even though Dilma Rousseff was not able, it was prevented from standing, and she's so popular in Brazil, she won the previous election with 80% of the vote, but she was prevented from standing, So, but the former president, which was a political ally of Dilma Rousseff, Lula da Silva, he was able to stand. So then now they turn on him and they try to make up all kinds of fantastic allegations of corruption against him. So basically they play fast and loose with the Brazilian constitution. They got Lula da Silva convicted on some bullshit charge. They get him in prison. They even though he was so they prevent him from running. So they prevent him from running. All tricks in the book to prevent another very popular populist politician in Brazil, that the overwhelming support of the population, preventing him from running. They prevented Dilma Rousseff, they impeached Dilma Rousseff, they prevented her from running, they prevented Lula da Silva, another ally of populist ally of Dilma Rousseff, from running. And then in the end they get this geezer Bolsonaro, which is like a bit of a poor man Trump or something. I'm not doing Trump bashing, but So so basically that's what happened. And now this guy is playing fast and loose with the Brazilian constitution, and doing unspeakable thing in terms of environment, in terms of workers' rights, in terms of freedom of speech, civil rights. So that is how it is. And then the people at some point they like they get really, they like you wear people down, and then they go with everything, like anything. I mean, so they wanted to really Dilma Rousseff for president. They wanted Lula da Silva for president. And then they got this geezer, Bolsonaro, which was making some kind of populist noise, a bit like Trump, you would say. Some fake populist noises. And there's, oh, well, see, think that we can have Dilma Rousseff, we can have Lula da Silva, let's go for this geezer. He's making some populist noise. But now what they're going to get is, this guy is going to privatize, even people breed, is going to destroy public services, what little welfare people have in Brazil, take away all kind of, all kind of protection for the, so now that people are probably going to eat chlorinated chicken in Brazil and such like and things and pollute everything, get the chemicals everywhere, just instead of disposing of chemicals, just throw them into river, into fucking water. So, I mean, that's what they're getting with Bolsonaro, Brazilian people, It's supposed to be right-wing, but I don't think Bolsonaro is right-wing. I think he's he's doing all the bankers' dirty work, basically, it's called a right wing, but that's, to me, it's the fake right. He's doing all the bankers' dirty. It's not the right wing, he's a puppet of the bankers, a bit like Trump, Sorry, but, I know interesting in Trump, in Trump bashing, but hey, look at facts. I mean, okay, Empire. Oh, okay, that's interesting one. Financial Survival, that is from James Corbett. That's quite interesting because just to see all sides of different arguments, this is from James Corbett. Text. James Corbett lives in Japan. He resides in Japan, James Corbett. And so he's going a very original take on something which feels, we are limited resources, we have to just kill off like most of the population, kill 8 billion people, get down to 500,000. That's probably people what Prince Phillips thinks, and Soros and Bill Gates, all these criminals, they think, and let's we need to cut the number of the population, to manage to find a way of exterminating 8 billion people and get down to half a billion people, sorry. So it is that we need to cut population and stuff. And then James Corbett is starting to look at what's happening in Japan. Japan is one of the countries they have a negative index of natality, like the more people dying that they are born, basically. So the number of the population is decreasing. It is happening also in Italy. It was happening in Russia in the 90s when the oligarch and the bankers took over the country and they started destroying it. So it's happening currently in Italy, it's happening in many European countries, it's happening in Japan. And contrary to what people like Prince Phillips and Soros and Bill Gates are telling you, is that they live in Japan, they make a study based on the reality in Japan. They say, well, from what I can see in Japan, the fact that there's a negative natality index, is actually doing untold damage to the Japanese economy. So it goes against all this narrative about Club of Rome, Bilderberg, Trilateral Commission, say we need to exterminate 8 billion people and just stick to half a billion, 500 million, and everything is going to be fine. So that's the narrative they try to propagate. And Japan, James Corbett, who lives in Japan, he made a local study of what is happening in Japan. He said the fact that they have, the number of the population is decreasing is having a devastating effect on the economy of the country. So, just to counter this narrative being promoted by certain creatures. Okay, so that's quite interesting, and that is empower. Okay, they're still trying to get the truth about 9/11, which is good luck to them. But which I think I signed this petition, and now it's been signed by only 211 people, so that gives you some idea. That's Rudy Giuliani there, I think, in the picture, and investigate 9/11, bring to justice to those responsible. So, Yeah, that would be good. Would be good to get some truth about 9/11. They're very big on they're very big of emotional blackmails. Like they're very big on emotional blackmails. Like, oh, if you say certain things, so you're disrespecting this, you're disrespecting that. If you try to use the reason, if you try to go with the fact, that is disrespectful to the victim. Because there is a way victims there was some level of emotional blackmail and guilt tripping and the rest of it. But it seems to me that there is a few things to. So now, if you say anything, ask any question about what happened in New Zealand, oh, you're disrespecting the victim. That's horrible. You can say that. If you ask any rational question, but it seems to me, you know, that the best way of if when there are victims, because there is a certain instance in this situation there are actually crisis actors is undeniable, but when there are real victims, it seems to me that the best way to respect the victims is to ask questions about what really happened there. And then if the best proof of that is that most of the family of the people who died on 9/11, I would say up to 80%, they question the official version. So when they tell you, oh, you can say that because that is disrespectful to the victim, tell them, look, the 80% of the member of the relative family, which the people who died on 9/11, they question the official version. There is actually and then in this country, here in London, we have Matt Campbell. Matt Campbell, which is also my Facebook friend. Matt Campbell has been very active. He lost his brother on 9/11. Matt Campbell is British, but he lost his brother on 9/11. His brother was working over there in New York. And Matt Campbell has been super vocal since, he's been super vocal since his brother died on 9/11 to try to debunk the totally ludicrous, utterly ludicrous and implausible official version of what happened on 9/11. You know? And there is also interesting side story because you know, there is it's about someone was working with when Matt Campbell in this country was trying to debunk to work to bring some truth about what happened to his brother. He was working with a Labour MP called I'm not very good with name. Oh gee, Michael Meacher, right? Michael Meacher, Labour MP Michael Meacher. With a good following in the Labour Party, which was also a good friend and political ally of Jeremy Corbyn. So when, for instance, a couple of years ago, Jeremy Corbyn decided to stand for the leadership of the party, one of the people supported his candidacy was actually Michael Meacher. And people say actually Michael Meacher was one of the people who persuaded Jeremy to stand. So I was very close friend and ally of Jeremy Corbyn. Right? And then Jeremy Corbyn got elected the first time. And then, and then what happened? What happened was quite interesting because Michael Meacher, he was not just a close friend and ally of Jeremy Corbyn, but he also, almost since 2001, had been tireless campaign to debunk the official version of 9/11, the official story. So when, for instance, I think it's probably 4 years ago actually, we have the Bilderberg conference in London, in North London, in Watford. And then all the people protesting Bilderberg were outside the ground of the hotel, and they actually tongue-in-cheek, they call it the Bilderberg Festival, protesting the Bilderbergers on the ground of the hotel at the bottom. They had to give us some ground at the bottom of the hotel because otherwise people would have been in the street blocking the road. So they allow people to get at the very bottom of, in the ground of the hotel, just close to the gates, the outside gate of the hotel. And then there was this big building with, a long distance away. So they probably protected from us. And so I was there on both days, Friday and Saturday. On Friday there was on Saturday there was Max Kaiser together with Alex Jones and David Icke. So I was there leafleting about targeting, try to raise awareness. So I managed to give some literature to David Icke. That actually David Icke and Alex Jones was working together amongst the crowd there. So I managed to give some leaflet about targeting to David Icke. I managed to give some literature about targeting to Alex Jones. I shook his hand. If people don't like that, they can stuff it. I shook his hand. I'm not a supporter of Alex Jones, but like, I really object to this tribal mentality. Oh, if you shake Alex Jones' hand, you must be a fascist or something. So I'm quite happy. I shook his hand. I object to many of the things he says, but I shook his hand. So if you don't like it, I shook his hand. And then quite interestingly, the following day, Alex Jones, I don't know if that was the plan all along or what, but he was making the final speech to the gathering of the protesters. It was the Saturday, it was to maybe 6, 7 o'clock. He made the final speech. Alex was making the final speech. I was there again, the second day. And he said, he was talking about this horrific thing that the elite are supposed to be doing. And at some point he said that they're using electromagnetic radiation to kill a lot of people. So I thought, oh, that's interesting, because the previous day I gave some of our literature about targeting, which talk about the direct energy weapon and microwave jail. So the next day I was saying, like, at some point you say that they discover all the horrible things the elite is supposed to do to the people, it's very poisoning and stuff. At some point you saw everybody say, like, oh, they're using electromagnetic radiation to kill people and stuff. So I thought, oh, maybe just had a look at the leaflet and got some inspiration from there. Or maybe it was something was planning to say all along and nothing to do with my literature or our literature. But anyway, that's what happened at the so-called Bilderberg Festival. But one interesting thing is that at the Bilderberg Festival there was another guy speaking, and that was Michael Meacham, Labour MP, close ally friend of Jeremy Corbyn. That was long before Jeremy Corbyn became leader of the Labour Party. It was at least two full years before Jeremy became leader of the party. And Michael Meacham made a long speech there, tried to debunk again, which seemed to be his hobby horse, tried to again to completely debunk the official version of what happened on 9/11, right? So that's the history of Michael Meacham. Then when Jeremy Corbyn became leader of the party for the first time a couple of years ago, that was a lot of stuff. Michael Meacham was a close friend, a close ally, but he was also busy doing other things. He was also for one thing he was doing just shortly before Jeremy Corbyn became leader of the party, because members of parliament, they have the prerogative, they can organize meetings inside the House of Parliament on all kinds of different subjects. Sometimes subjects may sound even a bit subversive to the establishment, that they have the privilege, they book a room inside the House of Parliament and they organize a meeting on a variety of different subjects, inviting fellow MP, members of the public, speakers. So I don't think long before Jeremy Corbyn became leader of for the first time, leader of the Labour Party, Michael Meacham was trying to organize a meeting inside the House of Parliament, using some space inside the House of Parliament, about reinvestigating 9/11, debunking the official story of 9/11. And he was actually trying to organize this thing with Matt Campbell, which is the brother of one of the people who died on 9/11, the British brother of one of the victims of 9/11. So they were working quite closely together. So what happened next? Seemed that he tried to organize this meeting, and then it seemed that all kinds of things started to happen in his life, And I'm a target individual, so I know I have pretty good insight on the stuff they can do to people, at different level, in different way to get to people, I spoke with some people who knew Michael Micha and were actually working with them. I think I got some information from Ian Henschel, which is one of the founder of Reinvestigate 9/11. He knew Michael, and so it seemed that things started to happen. So he organized this meeting in the House of Commons about reinvestigating 9/11 with Matt Campbell, which is the brother of one of the victims of 9/11, working together. And then it seemed that stuff started to happen in his life. I think, including the American embassy in London starting to really going after him and trying to smear his character and doing all kinds of things. That's what he was telling people. The American embassy in London at the moment is really on my back. That's what he was telling people. I think they've probably been doing all. I know the full spectrum of things they can do to people, to silence people, to disable people, to bully people into submission. So I, as a target individual, I know the full spectrum. So I don't know all the details, but I was telling people that the American embassy was really on his back, and if they, it does seem like it does seem such a big thing that the American embassy was on his back, because I can think of worse things. So if the American embassy starts to spin against you or attack you, I mean that's well, you can live with that. But obviously that was just the tip of the iceberg. There are probably a lot of other things, undercurrents and things going on. As a target individual, I can fully understand what they can do to people, to scare people, to bully people, to bully people into submission. So what happened? So he organized this meeting, and then after a couple of weeks, he did cancel the meeting. Michael Meacham, he did cancel the meeting. That was round about the time of the Corbyn became leader of the Labour Party for the first time. He cancelled the meeting, and then he was telling people like he was not giving people the full story. He was not giving people the full story what happened or what they've been doing to him to persuade him to cancel the meeting, but. However, it was only mentioning the fact that the American embassy in London was very much on his back, and so I don't know the full story. If it was other thing going on, and probably there were other thing going on. So it was explaining to people like, oh yeah, I cancelled because the American embassy on my back. I suspect there was probably a lot of other stuff happening in his life at this point, but to persuade him to cancel the meeting, the event. And then he also said something quite interesting. He was telling people another thing. He was saying, even though I cancelled the event, I'm sure there is going to be a payback for this, for having tried to organize the event. That's another thing he was telling people. He was saying people two things. He was saying the American embassy was very much on my back, spinning against me. And then he was saying, oh, even though I cancelled the meeting, I'm sure that in the future I will have to pay for this. They're not going to leave me alone. That's the two things he was telling people at the time when he cancelled the meeting. But then after that he was still working, even though he did decide to cancel the meeting. He was still working with Matt Campbell, the brother of the victim on 9/11, to organize other events, to spread awareness in other ways, to working on different events, different initiatives again to reinvestigate 9/11, spread the truth, etc. So that was happening fairly shortly before Jeremy Corbyn was elected as leader of the Labour Party for the first time. So Jeremy Corbyn was elected. Then you had a situation when you have Jeremy Corbyn, leader of the Labour Party, so increasing power for Jeremy inside the Labour Party, increasing way of leveraging his opinion and giving a platform for his political convictions. And then you are very close to Jeremy. Some people even say that he was the guy who persuaded him to stand. You have his close friend, a political ally, Michael Meacham, which was also, incidentally, a person with very vocally for up to then, 16, 17 years, been constantly talking about reinvestigating 9/11, trying to debunk the official version of 9/11. So that was, that's possibly, so you have all the establishment looking down on this relationship and possibly not being too enthusiastic about it. And then what happened? So Jeremy Corbyn get elected as leader of the Labour Party for the first time, and then after, so he had this quite relationship with Michael Meacher, his 9/11 activism, which may have been felt rather threatening by elements of the establishment. And then after a couple of months, Michael Meacher died mysteriously, as you do. And then even people close to him, they were really struggling to find out what he died for. So even people like Ian Henshall, which were quite close to Michael Meacher and his family, Ian Henshall is the founder of Reinvestigate 9/11 in the UK. Also, he wrote book on the subject. Even people like Ian Henshall, they couldn't get any answer what Michael. It was fairly close to Michael, the family. Could have any answer whatsoever. I don't know. Maybe things have been changing in the last few months. I don't know. So I can only speak of what I was told before. Couldn't get any definite information what Michael Meacher died from. Right? So the whole information got in the public domain. Michael Meacher died from a sudden illness. That's all we know, basically. Actually, Ian Henshall then was actually a bit agitating the situation and say, just because there is not to leave people with any doubt in their minds, it will be quite helpful if they allow us to know what Michael died from. He was saying that in public, sending email out and stuff. But as far as I know, the only information that was released to the public was, to anyone, was he died, Michael Meacher died from a sudden illness. And that's all we know. So, and then there was this very inconvenient relationship between, Jeremy Corbyn and Michael Meacher, but then there is also, sometime, yeah, I'm not saying it is true, but there is, it seems some people seem to believe that the intelligence community is someone, some politician, for instance, is perceived as a threat by the intelligence community. There is some, like the modus operandi, they don't just go after the person or kill them. They try to start killing all the people close to them, around them, also to send a message to the politician, right? So that seems to be, a lot of people seem to believe that actually is a common practice in the intelligence community. Someone they seem is really a threat to the establishment, but instead of killing them, which would be a bit too obvious, they start killing all the people around them. So that's what some people believe. I'm not saying it's true. We have a story about some of these people around Putin will be dying mysteriously or being murdered, or his favorite driver gets at some point murdered. So Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, his favorite driver a couple of years ago was assassinated. So I mean, some people seem to believe, I'm not saying it's true, some people seem to believe the intelligence community is kind of a modus operandi whereby they feel that some politician or public figure is represent a threat to the establishment. They don't just go to try to assassinate a person, which in many cases may be actually technically fairly easy, considering all the but they start going after the people around the person, and then it's also, which is may or may not be some sort of message, to the person involved. So look what may happen to you, but so this thing is very late, it's midnight in sunny London, and I think I'm going to stop. I try to distribute some useful information. And now I'm going to stop. I hope at least some people may have found the information useful, also some interest anyway. So I'm going to stop. I'm going